Chapter 348. The Wang clan was currently in a period of rapid growth. In the future, when Wang Daoyuan and Wang Shui opened their purple palaces, their strength would continue to rise. In addition, the Wang clan had been expanding and occupying more and more territory, so they needed more manpower. Now, regardless of whether it was the number of cultivators or mortals in the clan, they were seriously lacking. This time, they had recovered a large amount of territory, and the clan's assets had more than doubled, so they were even more lacking in manpower. Many underage cultivators were sent out to do some non-dangerous work. The various elders in the clan had also proposed many strategies to increase the population, but they didn't have any good ideas. Some elders proposed to open brothels like some clans that were seriously short of manpower to attract rogue cultivators. However, they were unanimously opposed. The Wang clan was more like a secular clan, and they valued the ordinary people in the clan. Most of the clansmen couldn't accept letting ordinary female clansmen do such things. In the end, they could only increase the subsidies for pregnant clansmen. It wasn't that no one had thought of using elixirs, but ordinary elixirs were like tigers and wolves. In order to increase the population, it would delay the cultivation of the cultivators, and not many clansmen were willing to eat such elixirs. Wang Daoyuan's elixirs weren't very brilliant, but the cost was too high. To refine them in large quantities, a lot of resources were needed. Now, Wang Daoyuan had made all the necessary preparations, and the channels to obtain resources were also arranged properly. They only needed people to carry it out step by step. The elders naturally didn't have any objections. After all, this was related to the clan's future, and also related to their descendants. Investing a little more spirit stones was nothing. Spending spirit stones to strengthen the clan, no matter how much they paid, they could get it back in the future. None of the elders had any objections, and all that was left was to discuss the detailed plan. Where to plant the spiritual herbs, how many to plant, how many to distribute to each cultivator, and how many rewards to give birth to children, these all needed to be discussed. Wang Daoyuan was too lazy to care about these small matters. After the reform, these matters were taken care of by the various halls, and he didn't need to care. After saying his suggestion and leaving the things, he left Jade Spring Peak on his sword and headed to Clear Sky Peak. Currently, there were no other Foundation establishment cultivators guarding Clear Sky Peak. There were only a few Qi refinement clansmen taking care of the businesses, and Wang Daoyuan was needed. The concentration of spirit Qi on Clear Sky Peak was enough, and it wouldn't delay his cultivation. Before his cultivation reached the peak of Foundation establishment, he didn't plan on going out again. 7 years later, Wang Daoyuan successfully broke through to the peak of Foundation establishment. During these 7 years, the clan gave out free blood strengthening and Qi replenishing pills to married cultivators every month. The effects were also very obvious. Just the cultivator clan alone gave birth to over 100 descendants. Before these children were born, their mothers had enough spiritual grains to eat and lived on the spiritual mountains. The proportion of cultivators among them should reach 20%. In addition to the children whose parents were both cultivators, there should be more than 20 cultivators among the 100 or so children. According to this calculation, there would be an average of 3 clansmen with spiritual roots born every year, which meant that there would be 150 in each generation. And this was only the descendants of cultivators, not the cultivators who appeared among the descendants of ordinary clansmen. In the future, when the number of cultivators increased, the number of descendants of cultivators born every year would also increase. Thus, the number of cultivators in the clan would also increase at an increasingly fast rate. It was just that these children were still young, so they couldn't test their spiritual roots. It was hard to say how many cultivators they could produce. Second brother Wang Daoxing and second sister-in-law also had the same hobby. The two of them had a pair of children. When the children were born, second brother specially went to Clear Sky Peak to thank him. Now that he had children, he had matured a lot. second brother's two children had the bloodline of both the Wang and Liang clans. Naturally, the Liang clan attached great importance to them. They even specially sent foundation establishment cultivators to deliver gifts. The new patriarch of the Liang clan, Liang Zipeng, personally came to Jade Spring Peak to bring Liang Xian and the children back to their parents' home for a few days. The patriarch and the various elders were naturally very happy with the increase in the number of descendants of the cultivator clan. They asked the rank 2 pill masters in the medicine hall to continue to work hard and refine more pills. They also wanted to try to improve the pill formulas and increase the medicinal effects. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation had reached the peak of foundation establishment, and he already had the conditions to open up his purple palace. If he could suddenly gain enlightenment, he would be able to open up his purple palace. The cultivation technique he cultivated was the 5-spirit immortal transformation technique, which had a very strong effect of strengthening the body. In addition, he often ate dragon heart fruits, so the strength of his body was quite good. Although it wasn't as resistant to beatings as a body-tempering technique, in terms of qi and blood, he didn't lose to ordinary body-tempering cultivators. There were many benefits to having a strong qi and blood. The main benefits were that the body was strong, and it was easier to recover from injuries. It also had a stronger resistance to beatings. Needless to say, his soul was even stronger. He used the inky jade lotus seeds as snacks. The strength of his soul and divine sense cultivation had already reached the limit of a foundation establishment cultivator. As long as a cultivator hadn't opened up his purple palace, it was almost impossible for them to compare with him in terms of soul strength and divine sense cultivation. Therefore, he didn't need to rely on the yin-yang purple jade or the purple cloudwood core to open up his purple palace. However, he didn't dare to take the risk. The main body of the spirit pearl space was in his sea of consciousness. During the process of opening up his purple palace, there would be a huge change in his sea of consciousness. He didn't know if there would be any problems in the spirit pearl space when the time came. If he didn't have the yin-yang purple jade or the purple cloudwood core to protect him, he really wouldn't be at ease. If there were any problems in the spirit pearl space, he wouldn't even know how he died. It was better to get the yin-yang purple jade and make all the preparations he could. He would do his best and leave the rest to fate. He couldn't make decisions about fate, but he had to do his best. It had been more than 20 years since he left Guiyan Market. He still didn't know what the situation in Shanbei was. According to his previous estimation, Wu Yi's clone should have accumulated enough contribution points long ago. Wang Daoyuan now had more than 600,000 spirit stones. He originally wanted to take some from his family, but now it seemed that he didn't need them. Bai Sheng had been running the weapon workshop for more than 20 years. How could he not have 100,000 spirit stones? As the fourth steward of the Shanbei branch of the Blood Shadow branch, Wu Yi could get a commission from his subordinates. It was not difficult for him to take out 200,000 to 300,000 spirit stones. If there were no accidents, it wouldn't be difficult for him to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade with his current assets. He greeted the 12th uncle and asked the family to send someone to guard Qingyun Peak. He changed into a loose cultivator's hairstyle, hit his cultivation level, and headed east to the sky/mountain range. After going 500 to 600 miles into the sky/mountain range, he turned north. In order to avoid being recognized by Dahei and the others, he deliberately bypassed Fallen Dragon Ridge. After arriving in Shanbei, he changed his appearance to that of Wu Chuan and went to Guiyan Market. When he was 70 to 80 miles away from Guiyan Market, Wang Daoyuan activated the panoramic perception of Bai Sheng's clone to see what had happened over the years. If his clone was exposed, he would be walking right into a trap if he went there. He sensed Bai Sheng and found that there was nothing wrong with him. All these years, Bai Sheng had been staying in the weapon workshop. Other than cultivating, he was refining weapons. Beiyuan of the White Fox tribe still came 3 to 4 times a year to ask him to help her refine magic weapons. Most of the magic weapons were made from the bones of wolf-type demonic beasts. She didn't ask Beiyuan to refine any precious magic weapons. There was nothing wrong with Beiyuan. He then sensed the situation of Wu Yi and Lu Zong. Both of them had entered the Blood Shadow branch and were in more danger. Wu Yi was the most important. He was nurtured by Crimson Fox and was the key to obtaining the Yin-Yang Purple Jade. Even for the Blood Shadow, the Yin-Yang Purple Jade was not something that could be taken out casually. If one was not a direct descendant of Crimson Fox, even if they could gather enough contribution points and spirit stones, they might not be able to exchange for it. This could be seen from the 3 stewards who were at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage, especially Yu Lang. He had been in the Blood Shadow branch for many years and was still at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. Wu Yi was considered a direct descendant of Crimson Fox and had the highest chance of success. Chapter 349. However, Wu Yi had been leading a comfortable life these few years. He already had more than 30 Foundation establishment cultivators and more than 200 Qi refinement cultivators under him. The number of subordinates he had as a steward was equivalent to 2 stewards. And this was after he gave Lu Zong a portion of his subordinates. Lu Zong was now the 5th steward and had more than 10 Foundation establishment cultivators and 70 to 80 Qi refinement cultivators under him. The strength under him was only slightly weaker than the other 3 stewards. In the Blood Shadow North Mountain branch, Scarlet Fox's strength completely overshadowed the Deputy Hall Master, Mystic Martin. Out of the 5 stewards, she had 3 stewards under her while Mystic Martin only had 2 stewards under her. Even if Quiet Wolf was considered neutral, the strength that Wu Yi and Lu Zong had was still stronger than the 2 stewards under Mystic Martin. All these years, Scarlet Fox had the power to assign missions and would always give dangerous missions to Mystic Martin subordinates. The cultivators under Mystic Martin had more severe casualties. However, she had the support of the headquarters and sufficient resources to recruit new people. Thus, she could continue to maintain the situation. Scarlet Fox could go from being suppressed by Mystic Martin to suppressing Mystic Martin. This huge change was entirely brought about by Wu Yi. He had been recruiting for the past few years, which allowed Scarlet Fox's strength to expand so quickly. Scarlet Fox's attitude towards this great contributor was naturally very good. All these years, missions with low risks and high rewards were all taken by Scarlet Fox and given to Wu Yi's subordinates. Missions with lower risks were given to Lu Zong's subordinates. Missions with equal risks and rewards were given to Quiet Wolf. Dangerous missions were naturally given to Mystic Martin's subordinates. Wu Yi's results over the past few years were also very impressive. He already had more than 400,000 contribution points. Excluding his usual cultivation expenditure, he still had more than 300,000 spirit stones. Lu Zong also had more than 100,000 contribution points and over 100,000 spirit stones. His cultivation had also reached the peak of Foundation establishment. Originally, his clone's comprehension was weaker and there was a gap from Foundation establishment level 9 to Foundation establishment peak. However, with Scarlet Fox's personal guidance, he only used 5 years to go from Foundation establishment level 9 to Foundation establishment peak, which was much faster than Wang Daoyuan. As someone brought into Blood Shadow by Wu Yi, Lu Zong could be considered half of Scarlet Fox's subordinates and had also received a lot of guidance. In addition, Lu Zong's talent was stronger than Wu Yi's. It only took him 4 years to successfully break through to the peak of Foundation establishment. Although the Wang clan had the cultivation experience left behind by the old ancestor, compared to the Blood Shadow behind Crimson Fox, that bit of inheritance of the Wang clan was completely insufficient. The Blood Shadow clan was a great force that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Their background was not something that a clan like the Wang clan, which was less than 700 years old, could compare to. Knowing that his 3 clones were safe and sound, Wang Daoyuan felt relieved and boldly headed to the market. He came to the door of the Wu family's weapon refining workshop and went straight to the backyard. Even though he had lost contact with his doppelganger, its intelligence was not lower than that of an ordinary person. Moreover, the split soul could check the memories of the clone. Bai Xing's avatar was a cultivator who snatched treasures, so he was very experienced in scheming against others. In addition, the doppelganger did not have its own consciousness. After losing contact with the doppelganger, its only thought was how to serve the main body. Without the presence of the main body, he would not cause any trouble. All these years, Bai Sheng had not encountered any danger at all. He had spent most of his energy on weapon refinement and had been refining weapons for the White Fox tribe all these years. He had saved up a lot of spirit stones, which was more than 300,000. The spirit stones in the hands of the 3 clones were more than enough to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade. After Wu Yi exchanged for the yin-yang purple jade, Wang Daoyuan would use it to open up his purple palace and nurture Lu Zong so that he would also be qualified to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade. Wang Daoyuan arrived at the Guiyan market and could directly control his doppelganger. All these years, his doppelganger had not caused any trouble and Shanbei was considered peaceful. Now, it was time to stir up trouble again. As for the yin-yang purple jade, he could not let his doppelganger Wu Yi mention it directly. He had to test it first. Coincidentally, 2 days after Wang Daoyuan returned to the Guiyan market, Crimson Fox asked Wu Yi to go to her cave abode. Wu Yi was now Crimson Fox's most trusted subordinate. Any confidential matters were handed to him. Wang Daoyuan used a panoramic perception on his doppelganger Wu Yi. He did not need to deliberately control his doppelganger. That would be easy to reveal flaws instead. Doppelganger Wu Yi entered Crimson Fox's cave abode. He had been here often these few years and could be considered familiar with the place. After entering the cave abode, he directly sat on a stone chair. Crimson Fox took out a jade slip and handed it to Wu Yi, saying, "This is the new target." All these years, it was him who kept sending resources to the Guiyuan sword sect. The headquarters paid a huge price to figure out the source of the Guiyuan sword sect's spirit medicines. This person came from Linhai Prefecture and should be Lord Linhai's man. Each time he sent resources, he went against the flow from Linhai Prefecture to Wanshuan Market. After staying for half a month, he arrived at Clear Glass Market and stayed for another 2 months. Then, he arrived at Gold Goose City and stayed for a few days before coming to Guiyan Market and staying at the Guiyuan Inn. If not for the fact that Guiyuan Inn has little business now, we really wouldn't have noticed him. This person carries a lot of resources on him. He most likely has a high-grade spatial treasure. The price of this thing starts at 100,000 spirit stones. The better ones are above 200,000. In addition to the resources he carries on him, we can get at least 500,000 spirit stones by taking him down. This person has been moving around in the Netherworld sect's territory and is extremely cautious. It's not easy for the other branches to make a move. Therefore, this task fell on our heads. We must take him down after he leaves Gold Goose City and before he arrives at Guiyan Market. I'll leave this to you. After it's done, half of the harvest will be handed over and the other half will go to the person carrying out the mission. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan was a little excited. It felt great to make use of Blood Shadow for free. He didn't have to trouble himself. A fat sheep came to him automatically. He really wanted to take this fat sheep for himself. Unfortunately, he still had to get the yin-yang purple jade from Crimson Fox. If this mission failed and Crimson Fox was disappointed in Wu Yi, it would affect the exchange of the yin-yang purple jade. Wu Yi probed into the jade slip with his divine sense and saw that this person's basic situation was recorded inside. This person's cultivation was also peak foundation establishment. In Blood Shadow's intelligence, there was no record of him fighting anyone. His combat strength could not be determined. This person was temporarily staying at Clear Glass Market. He had already stayed for a month and would stay for another month or so before leaving. Wu Yi pondered for a moment and said, "Hall Master, this person's combat strength is unknown. I don't have the confidence to take him down by myself. I want to bring Lu Zong along and mobilize all the powerful Foundation establishment cultivators under us. We'll try to kill him in one blow." Crimson Fox nodded and smiled. "You're indeed someone who cares about the big picture. You're cut out to be a Vice Hall Master or even a Hall Master. I originally wanted to send you and Lu Zong together, or I'll send a few cultivators directly under you. Since you've brought it up yourself, then let Lu Zong accompany you." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was secretly delighted. This was the best opportunity to sound him out. Wu Yi's clone probed, "May I ask, Hall Master, how can a cultivator like me become a Vice Hall Master?" Crimson Fox glanced at him and smiled lightly. "You want to be a Vice Hall Master? That's not impossible. You were nurtured by me. You're loyal and capable. You even helped me suppress that bitch Xian Martin. If you can become a Vice Hall Master, you might be able to push Xian Martin away." The Vice Hall Masters of the various branches of Blood Shadow were mostly Zifu realm cultivators nurtured by the branches. A small number of them were directly appointed by the headquarters. For example, Xian Martin. "If you can establish a Violet Palace, I can apply to the headquarters to appoint you as a Vice Hall Master. If you do well as a Vice Hall Master, you might be promoted to Hall Master. If you do well as a Hall Master, you might be transferred to the headquarters and become a middle or upper echelon of Blood Shadow." "Why? You want to establish a Violet Palace?" Chapter 350. Wu Yi's clone nodded embarrassedly and smiled, "Even in my dreams." Scarlet Fox let out a charming laugh and walked half a foot away from Wu Yi. She asked, "Don't you think of anything else in your dreams?" Such a simple tease had no effect on a wily old fox like Wang Daoyuan. He took out the profound ice jade essence and held it in his hand without any ripples in his heart. On the other hand, Wu Yi's face turned red and he was at a loss. Scarlet Fox smiled, "Forget it, I won't tease you anymore. In order to help the branch recruit talents, the headquarters will send a piece of yin-yang purple jade every 100 years. I have 2 pieces with me now. I didn't have any suitable subordinates in the past, so I didn't let anyone exchange for them. If Spirit Wolf opens his Violet Palace, he will definitely be harder to deal with than Mystic Martin. Therefore, I've been stuck with him for a few decades. He's also a coward and he doesn't dare to forcefully open his Violet Palace. You were nurtured by me. Although your cultivation talent is lacking, you're strong enough and you're loyal to me. You're the best candidate to open your Violet Palace. As long as you can successfully open your Violet Palace and become a Vice Hall Master, you'll be a role model for other Foundation establishment cultivators. The subordinates of that bitch Mystic Martin will also want to join me. At that time, my enemy in the headquarters will no longer support Mystic Martin." Wang Daoyuan didn't know about Scarlet Fox's background, but he was very interested when he heard what she said. Wu Yi also showed a curious expression. It seemed to be a man's nature to be interested in a beauty's private matters. Scarlet Fox looked at Wu Yi and smiled bitterly. "I've been living in the Blood Shadow headquarters since I was young. My father is one of them. Not long after I started cultivating, I joined Blood Wolf. Later on, I offended a Golden Core cultivator during the competition for the right to open my Violet Palace. I was supposed to enter the upper echelons of the Blood Shadow, but I was pushed out of the headquarters and became a branch hall master in the northern part of the mountain. My father was also sent to carry out dangerous missions and died. However, I couldn't live peacefully in the branch because my enemy sent Mystic Martin to suppress me. I don't have any hope of returning to the headquarters, so I placed my hopes on my own subordinates. I hope to nurture a confidant and help him enter the upper echelons of the Blood Shadow to avenge me. Your talent can only be considered above average. Even if you open your Violet Palace, you won't have the possibility of forming your Golden Core. I originally wanted to find an extremely talented and loyal cultivator to nurture. Unfortunately, cultivators with the potential to reach the Golden Core realm were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Who would be willing to submit to others? I've spent more than 100 years, but I still haven't found anyone I'm satisfied with. Now, I don't have any hope for revenge. I just want to manage the Shanbei branch well so that my enemy can't interfere here. If it's just to guard the northern mountain branch, then letting you open your Zifu is the best choice. Oh right, do you have enough contribution points and spirit stones? Wu Yi nodded and said, I already have more than 400,000 contribution points and 300,000 spirit stones. Borrow some from Lu Zong and the others. If we can successfully complete the mission this time, it should be enough. Crimson Fox nodded and said, then once you complete this assignment, no matter if you have sufficient spirit stones or not, I'll allow you to exchange for it. It's still the same words. You must remember that you belong to me, Crimson Fox, and not Blood Shadow. In the future, when you become the Vice Hall Master, you have to work harder for me. Obtaining Crimson Fox's promise, Wang Daoyuan was very excited in his heart. Choosing to let Wu Yi enter Blood Shadow back then was truly an incomparably correct decision. Previously, he really didn't expect that Crimson Fox would actually trust Wu Yi so much. Originally, he thought that he still had to test him. He didn't expect that Crimson Fox would agree so easily. Wu Yi bowed solemnly and said, rest assured, Hall Master. Wu Yi will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire for Hall Master. Crimson Fox nodded in satisfaction. I'm still at ease with you. This time, how to intercept and kill Duke Linhai's people will all depend on you. In terms of intelligence, I'll send someone to contact you. You go and prepare. Wu Yi turned around and was about to leave Crimson Fox's abode when Crimson Fox said again, I've never told anyone about my private matters. Make sure not to spread it out. Wu Yi bowed and said, this subordinate will definitely keep my mouth shut. Actually, this matter didn't need Wu Yi to leak it. Wang Daoyuan already knew about it now. Even his clones were clear about it. After leaving Crimson Fox's abode, Wu Yi headed to Lu Zong's abode to discuss the matter of cooperating to complete the mission. Actually, there was no need for them to communicate at all. Once Wang Daoyuan knew, the other clones would also all know. Of course, in a dangerous place, putting on an act was still indispensable. This mission was equivalent to obtaining the Yin-Yang Purple Jades test. Only success was allowed and failure was not allowed. Wang Daoyuan decided to let all the cultivators who reached middle stage foundation establishment under Wu Yi and Lu Zong's two subordinates take action together. He himself also personally went to the battlefield to command. They must take down this fat sheep. If not for being afraid of being seen through by Crimson Fox's people, he really wanted to personally take down the enemy. After Wu Yi and Lu Zong's two clones pretended to discuss for a while, they both pretended as if nothing had happened. After all, there was still more than a month to the day of taking action. Letting their subordinates know so early was very easy to leak the news. As long as the two stewards were prepared, it would do. It was not too late to inform the others a few days before the operation. In the following time, the two clones also went out to buy some medicinal pills, spirit talismans, and the like. Crimson Fox sent people to report the target's intelligence to Wu Yi every day. A month later, Crimson Fox sent people to report that the target had already left Clearly City. Because Clearly City was not under the jurisdiction of the North Mountain Branch, the intelligence was transferred by the Clearly Branch, and the news was a little late. At this time, the target should have already arrived at Gold Goose City. This guy was very cautious. The time he stayed in Gold Goose City was not fixed. At most, it would be 10 days, at least 3 to 5 days. It was time to intercept and kill him within 3 days at the earliest. Wu Yi and Lu Zong immediately began to gather their trusted subordinates to prepare to intercept and kill. Wu Yi had more subordinates. There were a total of 7 cultivators who were trustworthy and not weak, and 2 of them were in the late stage of foundation establishment. Lu Zong had fewer subordinates. There were only 2 people who met the conditions, and only one of them was in the late stage of foundation establishment. This time, there were 2 peak foundation establishment, 3 late foundation establishment, and 6 foundation establishment cultivators participating in the operation. With so many people besieging a peak foundation establishment, as long as the person sent by Lord Lin Hai was not someone like Wang Daoyuan, it could be said that it was basically safe. If this guy really had the same fighting strength as Wang Daoyuan, he would not be sent out to run errands. This peak foundation establishment cultivator should be better at hiding than having a strong fighting strength. No matter how strong a foundation establishment cultivator was, he could not be stronger than a Zifu realm cultivator. He had to pass through the territory of the Netherworld sect. The stronger he was, the more conspicuous he would be, and the easier it would be to kill him. With the strength of the blood shadow, it would take decades to track this person, and there was no record of him fighting. Then this person should be extremely good at hiding and possibly good at escaping. The possibility of him being good at fighting was not high. After 2 hours, Red Fox sent someone again to inform that the target had already checked into the Immortal guest house in Gold Goose City. This person would choose one of 2 roads from Gold Goose City to Guiyan Market. The intelligence personnel of the Blood Shadow also did not find any pattern when he chose the road. Of these 2 roads, one was flying along Gold Goose Valley to Guiyan Market. The other was 200 miles east of Gold Goose Valley, flying back to Wild Goose Mountain, and then entering the market from the eastern area of Guiyan Market. These 2 roads were often taken by rogue cultivators. Taking these 2 roads was not conspicuous. It was just that it was uncertain which road he would take. Wang Daoyuan decided to let the 2 doppelgangers lead people to lie in ambush on the sides of the 2 roads. The Blood Shadow had intelligence personnel to monitor this person. The 2 roads were only 200 miles apart. For a middle and late foundation establishment cultivator, this distance was nothing. As long as the intelligence personnel confirmed the whereabouts of this person, the 2 teams would be able to support each other in a short time. Chapter 351. The ambush location Wang Daoyuan chose was between Guiyan Market and Golden Goose City. If it was too close to Golden Goose City, the commotion would attract the cultivators of Netherworld School in Golden Goose City. Moreover, it was impossible to predict which route the target would choose in advance. The 2 clones each led a team and spread out to ambush. If it was too close to Golden Goose City and the battle broke out too early, only one team would be able to fight the target. The other team might not be able to support in time and might cause the target to escape. And if it was too close to Guiyan Market, once it failed, the target would quickly escape into Guiyan Market and they wouldn't be able to make a move. After setting the location, Wang Daoyuan personally went to the center of the 2 ambush locations. His spiritual sense cultivation had improved a lot now, and the range of his clones with panoramic perception had reached 150 to 60 li. He could control 2 clones at the same time in the hiding place. No matter which route he encountered the target, Wang Daoyuan could control the clones to fight. The 2 clones gathered their men and prepared to set off. 2 late-stage foundation building cultivators found them. One of them saluted and said, "Greetings, stewards. The hall master ordered us brothers to come and help you." Wu Yi asked, "What are your names and what skills do you have? Tell me in advance so I can arrange tasks for you." The man saluted and said, "I'm Uncle Zhuang, my brother is Zhuang Zhong. The 2 of us brothers each have a magic rope called Demon Binding Rope. Although it's only a high-grade magic tool of the second rank, its material is extraordinary. As long as it binds the enemy, cultivators below the Zifu realm won't be able to break free. When the two stewards fight with the target, we brothers can control the demon binding rope to launch a sneak attack. As long as the sneak attack is successful, we can take down the target. In the case where Wang Daoyuan didn't make a move, the 11 of them could defeat the target without any problem. But the target of the mission might have an extremely strong ability to escape. This group of assassins relied on sneak attacks to kill people. If they couldn't kill in one blow and the target was determined to escape, they really didn't have full confidence to take down the target. Now that Scarlet Fox sent 2 direct cultivators, it was hard to say how strong they were in a fight. But since Scarlet Fox sent them, it meant that the Zhuang brothers weren't useless. Their demon binding rope should be somewhat useful. With an extra monkey, one would have a bit more strength, not to mention 2 helpers with special magic tools. It would be a waste not to have them. Wu Yi brought 2 late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators, 2 middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators, and Uncle Zhuang. Lu Zong brought 1 late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator, 4 middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators, and Zhuang Zhong. The group of 13 people split up and left returning Wild Goose Market, and gathered near the ambush location. Wu Yi's ambush location was beside the Golden Goose Valley, 1,000 miles south of the Carriage Gorge. Lu Zong's ambush location was about 200 li east of Wuizheng. Wang Daoyuan himself was hiding in the middle of the 2 ambush points. In order to facilitate mutual support, each team stationed a middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator 500 miles south of the ambush point. After discovering the target, he would immediately report it to the manager so that the 2 teams would have enough time to support each other. After 5 days of ambush, news came from Scarlet Fox's side. The intelligence personnel of Gold Goose City discovered that the target had left Gold Goose City and was flying north on his sword. The place where Wu Yi ambushed was in the north of Golden Goose City. 15 minutes after receiving Scarlet Fox's news, the middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator that Wu Yi sent 500 li south sent news that the target had already appeared and was heading north along the returning Wild Goose Valley. His clone, Lu Zong, also brought his subordinates and immediately approached Wu Yi's side. 15 minutes later, Lu Zong and Wu Yi's groups of 11 people gathered. There were still 2 sentries in the south who had yet to rush over. A few minutes later, a cultivator at the peak of the Foundation Establishment stage with a long beard flew towards them on his sword. This was the cultivator that was mentioned in the intelligence report to deliver resources to Gue Yuan Sword Sect. Wu Yi's clone and the others used Earth Escape talismans to hide underground. When the target flew above the ambush point, 11 flying swords soared into the sky. The long-bearded cultivator was also extremely vigilant. He made a sharp turn in the air on his sword and retreated, dodging the first wave of attacks from the flying swords. The 11 flying swords spread out and surrounded the long-bearded cultivator from all directions. They wanted to force him to give up on flying on his sword and then beat him up. However, the long-bearded cultivator was not fooled. He took out a stack of Grade 2 superior grade spirit talismans and scattered them around without looking at how many there were. Foundation Establishment cultivators could fly on their swords and also attack from a distance. Offensive spirit talismans were not very effective against Foundation Establishment cultivators. However, it was an extremely good choice to use offensive spirit talismans to block the attacks of flying swords. The 11 flying swords were all repelled by the attacks of the hundreds of offensive spirit talismans. The long-bearded cultivator changed his direction and flew towards the south, wanting to return to Gold Goose City to hide. His speed of flying on his sword was not very fast, only around 2,200 to 300 li per hour. Wu Yi and Lu Zong had both learned the returning wild sword technique and could barely be considered as sword cultivators. Although their strength was not great, their speed of flying on their swords could reach 2,700 to 800 li per hour. The long-bearded cultivator's speed was far inferior to the two of them. This place was around 2,000 li away from Gold Goose City and returning Wild Goose Market. If he did not have any helpers, he would not be able to escape no matter what. After the long-bearded cultivator turned towards the south, Wu Yi and Lu Zong flanked him from the east and west. The two of them were faster than him. He had to frequently throw back talismans to repel the two of them to ensure that he would not be blocked. The others were slower, but they were not left behind. Especially the Zhuang brothers, although they were in the late stage of foundation establishment, their flying speed was not slower than the long-bearded cultivator. They followed closely behind the three of them, not giving the long-bearded cultivator a chance to escape to the north. The group of people flew towards the south for more than 100 li. Suddenly, two flying swords blocked the long-bearded cultivator's path. The owners of these two flying swords were the two cultivators who were previously on sentry duty 500 li south of the ambush point. They were in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Their flying speed was not as fast as the long-bearded cultivators, and they were afraid of being discovered. Therefore, they only arrived here now. They just happened to see their brothers chasing after the target, so they took action to stop them. The long-bearded cultivator was in a hurry to escape. His energy was focused on blocking the two sides and behind him. He did not notice that there were two people in front of him. Now that he was attacked by two flying swords, he could only dodge in a hurry. This time, his speed slowed down, and the people chasing behind quickly surrounded him. The long-bearded cultivator pretended to be innocent, saying, "Dao Yu, how did I offend you to provoke you to come to kill me?" Lu Zong opened his mouth and said, "We only want money." As a peak stage foundation establishment cultivator, Dao Yu must have a lot of good things on you. Leave your treasures behind and we'll spare your life. While they were talking, Wu Yi's clone was not idle. Just as the long-bearded cultivator was about to reply, dozens of sword phantoms attacked him. He had a lot of combat experience, so he took out a yellow shield to block the sword phantoms' attacks. At the same time, his body retreated towards the south. There were only two middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators there. If he wanted to force his way through, the two of them would not be able to stop him. When the sword phantoms hit the shield, Wu Yi shouted, "Do it!" The Zhuang brothers immediately took out their demon-binding ropes. Two 30-feet-long golden ropes flew towards the long-bearded cultivator. The long-bearded cultivator was in the middle of blocking the myriad sword art, so he did not react in time. By the time he wanted to escape, it was already too late. Under the control of his divine sense, these demon-binding ropes flew much faster than sword kinesis flight. The long-bearded cultivator had nowhere to run and was tightly bound by the two demon-binding ropes. However, he did not give up resisting. The spirit energy on his body fluctuated intensely, wanting to break free from the demon-binding ropes. To prevent any accidents from happening, Wu Yi shouted, "Kill!" 13 flying swords flew towards the long-bearded cultivator. Before he could release any spells, his heart was pierced by the swords. After confirming that he was dead, Wu Yi's clone searched his body. He found a high-grade second-stage magic tool flying sword, a storage ring and 2 storage bags. Chapter 352. It was needless to say that the universe ring was a high-grade spatial treasure. Even the 2 storage pouches had the ability to recognize its owner. Although the original owner was dead, it couldn't be opened without recognizing its owner. It would take some time to do so. A battle had just taken place here. It might attract the attention of wandering cultivators. Wu Yi and the others didn't stay any longer. After sending a message to Scarlet Fox, they immediately dispersed and returned to Guiyan Market. The traces left here would be cleaned up by professionals. Wang Daoyuan himself appeared and pretended to be a passing cultivator. He followed Wu Yi from afar to prevent him from being killed. These things were his hope of obtaining the yin-yang purple jade. he couldn't afford to lose them. Wu Yi was also at the peak of Foundation establishment. Even if there were cultivators who wanted to snatch the treasures, they wouldn't dare to attack him. They returned to Guiyan Market without any danger. There wouldn't be any danger after entering Guiyan Market. Wang Daoyuan didn't follow and returned to Wu clan's equipment forging workshop. Wu Yi and Lu Zong both returned to the northern branch of Blood Shadow Mountain. Wu Yi went to Scarlet Fox's cave residence and handed the ring and storage pouch to him. After Scarlet Fox recognized the universe ring and storage pouch, he opened the universe ring and exclaimed, "This Lord Linhai is really generous. Even the tools used to deliver the goods are such high-quality universe rings. The space inside the universe ring is 10 square feet. Such a large spatial treasure can be auctioned off for at least 300,000 spirit stones." He opened 2 more storage pouches and said with a smile, "We've really caught a big fish this time. The spirit herbs, elixirs, refining materials, magic tools, and other materials inside are worth more than 700,000 spirit stones. Including the universe ring, it's more than 1,000,000 spirit stones. There are also 2 rank 3 demon beast cores that can be used to refine Foundation establishment elixirs. The Zhao clan really values the Guiyuan sword sect. It seems that they want to turn the Guiyuan sword sect into a sharp knife to counterattack the Netherworld sect. Alright, I'll take all these goods. You'll get 300,000 spirit stones from this trip. I'll also pay for the others' rewards. Now, you're about a few tens of thousands of spirit stones to exchange for the Yin Yang purple jade. I'll make it up for you. Do you want to exchange for the Yin Yang purple jade now?" Wu Yi replied without hesitation, "I've already made preparations to establish my Violet Palace. I'll exchange it now." Crimson Fox nodded and said, "Alright, I'll go get the Yin Yang Violet Jade for you right away." After saying that, she turned around and walked into the cave. She opened the innermost arched door and walked in. After a quarter of an hour, she walked out of the arched door and handed a storage pouch to Wu Yi, saying, "The Yin Yang cub is inside. Apart from that, there are also some insights I had when I was establishing my Violet Palace. It should be of some help to you." At this moment, Wang Daoyuan, who was in the weapon refining workshop, could not help but sigh at how good it was to live off a woman. Wu Yi immediately bowed and said, "Many thanks for Hall Master's kindness. Even if this subordinate were to sacrifice his life, it would still be difficult to repay Hall Master's kindness." Crimson Fox withdrew another command token and said, "There's no need to be courteous. Help me suppress that bitch, the dark mink. To me, this is worth more than a few 100,000 spirit stones. Take the medallion and go to Green Wolf to hand over the spirit stones and contribution points." Also, when he opened his Violet Palace, purple light filled the sky. Furthermore, this purple light cannot be obstructed by any formation. Even if it's deep underground, it can still be seen from the outside. If you open up your Violet Palace in our branch, then our branch will be completely exposed. Do you have a place to open up your Violet Palace? Wu Yi pondered for a moment and said, "In the Heaven/Mountain Range, the ancient cultivator's cave that I hid in before. There are many restrictions in the depths of the cave. If I open up my Violet Palace there, even if demonic beasts are attracted by the purple light, they won't be able to do anything. They won't be able to break through the restrictions in a short period of time. That place can be used to open up my Violet Palace." Crimson Fox nodded and said, "I don't have a suitable place in my hands. Since you feel that it's suitable, then go there. I can't leave the branch for a long period of time. Otherwise, that bitch, the dark mink, will definitely seize the opportunity to seize power. I still have to stay in the branch to guard against her, so I won't be able to protect you. Take care of yourself." Wu Yi cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your trouble, Hall Master. I have accumulated for many years, and with the Yin Yang cub, the chances of opening up my Violet Palace are extremely high. Hall Master, you don't have to delay the important matters in the branch for me. I'll go hand in the contribution points and spirit stones, then I'll go to the ancient cultivator's cave and bid farewell to Hall Master. Crimson Fox waved his hand and said, Go. The Heaven/Mountain range is filled with demonic beasts. That ancient cultivator's cave isn't far from the Heaven/Mountain range, so the chances of encountering a third-grade demonic beast are very high. You're lucky that you didn't encounter a third-grade demonic beast previously. This time, you have to be even more careful. Now that you have the hope of opening up your Violet Palace, it would be a great loss if you die now. Wu Yi promised again and again that he would be careful. He opened the storage pouch in his hand and looked at the yin-yang cub inside. The yin-yang cub was extremely famous. Wang Daoyuan had only heard of it many times, but he had never seen it before. There was a palm-sized purple stone in the storage pouch. The stone's brilliance was restrained, and there was nothing strange about its appearance. Only by using his spiritual sense to probe the stone could he sense the vast amount of purple qi contained within. However, the purple qi was extremely gentle and was far from being as violent as spiritual power. When absorbing the purple qi into his sea of consciousness, he didn't have to worry about the risk of damaging his meridians. After looking at the yin-yang cub, he tied the storage pouch and kept it close to his body. His outer clothes were made of spirit-forbidding silk and other materials. With the storage pouch inside, outsiders wouldn't be able to detect it with their spiritual sense. Afterward, he left Scarlet Fox's cave and went to Green Wolf's place to hand over his contribution points and spirit stones. Green Wolf was Scarlet Fox's trusted aide. In the past, he had helped Scarlet Fox manage human affairs. Now that Scarlet Fox had more subordinates, he had a stronger backbone and was competing with the Black Marten for power. The power that he took back was all given to Green Wolf. Now, the human affairs and the exchange of resources were all in Green Wolf's hands. Although his position wasn't high and was even inferior to a manager, his real power was comparable to the Vice Hall Master. Wu Yi came to Green Wolf's place. Both of them were the Hall Master's trusted aides, so they naturally had a good relationship. Seeing Wu Yi come in, Green Wolf smiled and said, Manager Wu, you've been riding high these years. Why are you here? Could it be that there's a newcomer? Since you're here personally, the newcomer must be at least mid-stage foundation establishment, right? Wu Yi waved his hand and said, riding high. It's all because of the Hall Master's trust. I'm not as good as you in this aspect. Your position isn't high, but your power is much greater than a manager like me. I'm not here to take in new members, but to exchange for some things. After saying that, he flashed the token that Scarlet Fox gave him, then glanced at the door. Green Wolf immediately understood and closed the door, asking, What do you want to exchange for, Brother Wu? Wu Yi said softly, I've already taken the things from the Hall Master. He asked me to come over and hand over the contribution points and spirit stones. As Scarlet Fox's trusted aide, Green Wolf naturally knew what this meant. Wu Yi handed over his identity token to him, and then left all the spirit stones he had on him. Green Wolf took the spirit stones, deducted the contribution points, and returned the identity token to Wu Yi. Wu Yi took the token and left the place. When he was outside, he bumped into Yu Lang. The two of them were both subordinates of the Hall Master. Their relationship wasn't very good, but it wasn't bad either. Yu Lang smiled and said, What a coincidence to meet Manager Wu here. It seems like Manager Wu has found another good seedling. In terms of recruitment, you're the #1 expert in our North Mountain branch. You'll have to give me some pointers in the future. Yu Lang's tone was kind, and Wu Yi also smiled and replied, Brother Yu Lang is too kind. In terms of assassination ability, you're the #1 in our branch. Please give me some pointers in the future. The two of them chatted for a while, then Yu Lang entered Green Wolf's place while Wu Yi left the branch. Chapter 353. Blood Shadow had many informants, so Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to let Wu Yi directly give him the yin-yang purple jade. If that was the case, he probably wouldn't be able to leave returning Wild Goose Market alive. He left the workshop and headed southeast to meet up with Wu Yi at Mount Huiyan, which was southeast of the market. After that, Wang Daoyuan planned to open his Violet Palace in the Five Elements Secret Realm. The Secret Realm and Beiyuan Xiaofan weren't in the same space, so the purple light from opening his Violet Palace couldn't penetrate the Secret Realm. Blood Shadow Branch, Yu Lang came to Qing Lang's place. He saw Qing Lang counting spirit stones in a storage bag and asked, "I've recruited a decent rogue cultivator. Please enter his information." I saw Manager Wu run out with a face full of joy. "Did you recruit some good seedlings?" Yu Lang was one of the Hall Master's people, so Qing Lang didn't guard against him and said, "Manager Wu exchanged some things, but he didn't recruit anyone. Please wait a moment, I'll do it for you after I finish counting the spirit stones." Hearing this, Yu Lang thought for a while and asked, "What did Manager Wu exchange for to make a Peak Foundation establishment stage cultivator so happy?" Hearing this, Qing Lang remembered that Yu Lang had long wanted to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade, but was stopped by the Hall Master. He smiled and said, "It's nothing much, just 2 foundation establishment pills to recruit people." Yu Lang was also an old fox, so how could he not see that Qing Lang was lying? If Wu Yi was only exchanging for something ordinary, Qing Lang didn't have to hide it from him. If Wu Yi couldn't let him know, then it was very likely to be the yin-yang purple jade. Thinking up to here, Yu Lang cupped his hands and said, "Brother Qing Lang, I have something urgent to attend to. Leave the identity token here, I'll come back later to get it." With that, he turned and walked out. After Wu Yi left the branch, he headed south. He planned to leave from the southern area of the market and head east to meet up with Yu Lang. Yu Lang left the underground branch and came to the Immortal Welcoming Inn's lobby. He transmitted his voice to the shopkeeper and asked, "Where did Manager Wu go? I have something to talk to him about." The shopkeeper didn't think much of it and replied, "He went south." At this time, Wu Yi was dressed as a rogue cultivator. In order not to attract attention, he did not fly on his sword. Instead, he slowly walked on the ground. Returning Wild Goose City Square did not have a flight restriction order. As long as one did not fight in the city square, there would not be any forces interfering. It was just that flying over someone's head on a sword was a little offensive. Generally speaking, cultivators wouldn't care about this. However, if they were to encounter a bad-tempered and extremely powerful cultivator, a fight would be inevitable. In order to avoid such a situation, most cultivators would not fly on their swords in the marketplace. This was especially true for the members of Blood Shadow. They were absolutely not allowed to fly on their swords in the marketplace. Yu Lang was already over 200 years old and was nearing the end of his lifespan. The opportunity to open the Violet Palace was right in front of him, so how could he care about such things? He rode his sword from the western region to the southern part of Guiyan Market. They arrived at the southern end of Guiyan Market and hid on the cliff on the west side of Guiyan Valley. From a high vantage point, he observed every passing cultivator. Wu Yi didn't notice anything amiss. After heading south and leaving returning Wild Goose Market, he flew east on his sword. As the number 1 assassin of the Blood Shadow Mountain's northern branch, Yu Lang naturally had his own unique way of recognizing people. From Wu Yi's movements, he recognized him and followed behind Wu Yi from afar. Green Wolf wasn't stupid and he was quite capable. However, his reaction speed was a little slow. After Yu Lang left, he continued to deal with his affairs. After dealing with his identity token, he felt that something was amiss. He remembered that Yu Lang was here for him to record his identity. Yu Lang didn't receive any messages along the way, so how could he have an emergency? If there was an emergency, he wouldn't have needed to make a trip himself. He could have just sent a subordinate. Yu Lang might have guessed that Wu Yi was exchanging for the yin-yang purple jade and went to kill him. Thinking of this, Green Wolf couldn't be bothered to deal with his affairs anymore. He had to report this matter to the Hall Master. In order to keep this a secret, he personally went to Scarlet Fox's cave and reported this matter to her. When Scarlet Fox heard about this, she also felt that Yu Lang might want to make a move on Wu Yi. She was the one who personally recruited Yu Lang into Blood Shadow. She naturally knew that Yu Lang was a vicious and merciless person who would do anything to achieve his goals. After changing into a rogue cultivator's outfit, she also left the underground branch. After finding out from the shopkeeper of the Immortal Welcoming Tower that Yu Lang had asked him about Wu Yi's whereabouts, she also flew towards the south on her sword. Wu Yi's flying speed was extremely fast. In just 15 minutes, he had flown a few hundred miles and arrived at the meeting place with Wang Daoyuan. After Wang Daoyuan left Clear Glass City, he also flew towards the meeting place on his sword. His flying speed was even faster than Wu Yi's, so he arrived at the meeting place a little earlier than Wu Yi. After meeting up, Wu Yi's doppelganger passed the storage bag to Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan didn't say anything and directly put the storage bag into the Spirit Pearl space. Foundation establishment rogue cultivators often appeared in this area. Putting away a storage bag wasn't very conspicuous. However, if he put away a living person, it would attract attention. Therefore, he didn't put Wu Yi into the Spirit Pearl space. The two of them flew towards the east on their swords. Both of them had learned the Guiyuan sword art. Their flying speed wasn't slow and Wu Yi wouldn't be a burden. They didn't notice that Yu Lang was secretly following them from a few dozen miles behind them. Scarlet Fox had left a spiritual sense imprint on the yin-yang cub. She could sense the yin-yang cub's position within 2,000 miles. After Wang Daoyuan put the yin-yang cub into the Spirit Pearl space, Scarlet Fox could no longer sense the yin-yang cub's position. She flew on her sword and chased after the yin-yang cub. Yu Lang wasn't a sword cultivator. With Wang Daoyuan and Wu Yi flying at full speed on their swords, he couldn't keep up. He could only take out his flying magic tool and chase after the two of them. This magic tool was an upper-grade second-tier boat-type magic tool. Its speed far surpassed that of flying swords. After a few dozen breaths, he and Wang Daoyuan were only 2,000 feet apart. Wang Daoyuan naturally noticed Yu Lang. He was chasing after them with his flying magic tool. Obviously, he didn't come with good intentions. He asked, "Dao Yu, why are you chasing after us?" Yu Lang laughed, "Manager Wu Yi naturally knows why I'm here. Hand over what I want and I'll let the two of you go." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan guessed that this guy was Yu Lang. He took out the other fiendish tiger sword from his storage bag and slashed at Yu Lang. As the #1 assassin in Shanbei, Yu Lang's skills weren't weak. With a wave of his hand, a flaming long blade appeared in the air and slashed at the fiendish tiger sword. However, his flaming long blade wasn't as powerful as Wang Daoyuan's flying sword. It was split into two. Yu Lang waved his sword and repelled the fiendish tiger sword. Wang Daoyuan withdrew his fiendish tiger sword and laughed, "You dare to chase after the two of us with just this bit of skill?" Yu Lang wasn't afraid at all. He stared at the sword in Wang Daoyuan's hand and sneered, "A flying sword refined from a tiger's fang. You really are that Wu Chuan from the Mirror Treasure Lake Oasis. The soul extinguishing bell is in your hands, so Qi Yun should have died by your hands. The inheritance should also be in your hands. My cultivation has been stuck at the pinnacle of Foundation establishment for nearly 100 years. I didn't expect to find the inheritance and only hoped to open the Violet Palace. Who would have thought that the hope of opening the Violet Palace and the inheritance would come knocking on my door? Brat, hand over what I want and I'll spare the two of you." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan immediately understood that Yu Lang was Chen Ji. He curiously asked, "You're Chen Ji?" "I'm curious. Back then at the Mirror Treasure Lake, you were a coward. Where did you get the guts to fight me head-on? Yu Lang disdainfully said, I don't really care about your little bit of skill. I'm afraid of that Zhou guy. Don't think that you're the only one who can see through his identity. If I offend him, I'll definitely die. Which cultivator doesn't want to live for a few more years? I'm not looking for death. Chapter 354. This place was only 1,000 miles away from returning Wild Goose Market. He did not know how powerful Chen Ji was. If he did not use his trump card, he would not have the confidence to take him down. Rogue cultivators often passed by this place. If he used his trump card, it was very likely that his trump card and identity would be exposed. Chen Ji's eyes turned red when he saw the yin-yang cub and the inheritance of the 10,000 corpse spiritual master. Wang Daoyuan controlled the flying kite and flew towards the east with Wu Yi's clone. He increased the flying kite's flying speed to 4,000 miles per hour, with Chen Ji following closely behind. His flying Dharma artifact was extraordinary. Without using much spiritual power, his speed surpassed the flying kites. Wang Daoyuan controlled the flying kite to maintain its speed while Wu Yi used spells to attack Yu Lang behind them. This could suppress Yu Lang's speed and prevent him from overtaking them. Yu Lang's fighting ability was very strong. Wu Yi had to use 2 or 3 spells to block one of his offensive spells. Even so, Yu Lang's speed was still affected. He was suppressed more than 100 feet behind Wang Daoyuan. The three of them quickly flew more than 1,000 miles to the east. At this moment, the black-robed scarlet fox arrived at the place where the yin-yang cub disappeared. She spread out her spiritual sense and covered dozens of miles. She only found a chi refinement cultivator searching for spiritual herbs. Scarlet Fox landed in front of the chi refinement cultivator and asked, "Did you see a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator pass by here 15 minutes ago?" The chi refinement cultivator felt the powerful spiritual power fluctuations from Scarlet Fox and hurriedly knelt down. "Senior, 15 minutes ago, 2 seniors met more than 10 miles to the east. Then, they flew towards the east. Not long after, another senior chased from the west on his sword. No one else passed by. My cultivation is low, so I wonder what the cultivation of these 3 seniors are like." This person did not know anything useful, so Scarlet Fox did not kill him. Otherwise, it would be a waste of time to clean up the corpse. She took out her flying sword and chased towards the east. More than 2 hours later, Wang Daoyuan and the other 2 arrived at the edge of the sky/mountain range. Wang Daoyuan landed on the ground and kept the flying kite. Subsequently, 2 tiger fiend swords flew out, slashing towards Chen Ji, who was in the air. When riding a sword to kill an enemy, the speed of the flying sword was much faster than when riding a flying sword. Even though Chen Ji was riding on a flying magic tool, his speed was not as fast as the flying sword. He took out a small round shield with a diameter of 1 foot and injected his spirit energy into it. A shadow of a shield with a diameter of more than 3 feet appeared. The 2 tiger fiend swords slashed at the shield shadow, but it didn't move at all. The flying swords were deflected. Wang Daoyuan put away the 2 tiger fiend swords and said, "Tier 3 defensive artifacts, interesting. Let's see how long you can last if you're at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage and forcefully drive a 3rd-rank magic tool." Wu Yi continued to use the myriad sword art to attack the shield phantom, consuming Chen Ji's spirit energy in divine sense. Wang Daoyuan's main body, on the other hand, condensed the heaven-cleaving sword and gave him a vicious blow. Although the shield in Chen Ji's hand was a level 3 magic weapon, he was only at the peak of Foundation establishment and could not unleash much of its power. Wang Daoyuan's heaven-cleaving sword might not be able to destroy the shield, but it would not be much of a problem for it to shatter the shield phantom. After 3 breaths, a 40-foot-long giant sword shadow appeared. Wang Daoyuan controlled the giant sword shadow and slashed at Yulang. Chen Ji saw that Wang Daoyuan's attack was too powerful and did not have the confidence to block it. He activated the flying magic tool under his feet and dodged the giant sword shadow. The giant sword shadow was very powerful, but its speed was its weakness. The flying magic tool under Chen Ji's feet could fly more than 4,000 miles in 2 hours. It would not be easy for him to hit it. If his speed was not enough, he could make up for it with an escape technique. As Wang Daoyuan swung his sword, he used the cloud mist escape. If the cloud mist escape was used for a long time in the water, its speed would not be as fast as sword kinesis flight. However, it was much faster than sword kinesis flight for a short distance. Wang Daoyuan's cloud mist escape could allow him to travel more than 50 feet in an instant. He condensed a black cloud and instantly disappeared into it. When he reappeared, the giant sword shadow also appeared from the cloud and slashed at Chen Ji. The giant sword shadow suddenly disappeared and suddenly reappeared. He had no time to dodge and could only use the shield phantom to block the attack. The shadow of the giant sword and the shadow of the shield collided, and then both of them shattered. The shield in Chen Ji's hand was not damaged at all, but he was sent flying by the force of the impact. He only stopped after breaking a few trees. After he landed, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He stood up, put away his flying magic tool and shield, and took out a fiery red long sword. Wang Daoyuan said with disdain, "With this little ability, where did you get the courage to ask me to hand over my things?" Chen Ji did not reply. The long sword in his hand surged with spiritual energy. After 3 breaths, he waved the long sword and condensed a huge wave of flames towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan did not understand the situation and did not dare to block it. He used the cloud mist escape and dodged the first wave of attacks. Wu Yi's clone also used the myriad sword art to attack Chen Ji. Unfortunately, he was too weak. Chen Ji did not need to divert too much energy and just cast a few spells to suppress him. Taking advantage of the time when Chen Ji was dealing with Wu Yi, Wang Daoyuan began to use the heaven-burning divine fire technique. After a few breaths, the divine bird by Fang finished condensing. The huge wave of flames rushed towards him again. Chen Ji was still waving his long sword, and the huge wave was getting bigger and bigger. The Beiyuan Phantom had the ability to control fire, but it could not take the fire attribute spells cast by the opponent as its own. It could only continuously extract flames from the huge wave to strengthen itself. Chen Ji was still waving his long sword, trying to make the huge wave of flames stronger and control it to attack Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan did not fight him head-on. He kept using the cloud mist escape to avoid the attacks. He controlled the Beiyuan Phantom to continuously extract the fire attribute spiritual energy from the huge wave, exhausting him to death. Chen Ji spent a long time, but the huge wave of flames did not expand. Instead, it kept shrinking. Chen Ji knew that if this continued, he would be sucked dry by the Beiyuan Phantom, and he still had to deal with Wu Yi. He dispersed the huge wave of flames and turned to control his flying sword to attack Wang Daoyuan. This flying sword seemed to be a third-level low-grade magic tool. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to take it head-on, and used the cloud mist escape to dodge. However, this flying sword was much faster than the cloud mist escape. He could not completely dodge it, and could only brace himself and use his flying sword to take it head-on. The Tiger Phantom sword in his hand collided with Chen Ji's flying sword. Chen Ji's flying sword was sent flying, and his Tiger Phantom sword was also severely damaged. The Beiyuan Phantom had absorbed enough fire attribute spiritual energy, and its wingspan had exceeded 300 meters. It spat out a huge mouthful of flames at Chen Ji. After Chen Ji caught the flying sword, he immediately dodged. Unfortunately, his speed was far slower than the Beiyuan Phantom, and the flames chased after him. Chen Ji could only parry and had no strength to fight back. Wang Daoyuan also began to condense the sky-cleaving sword, preparing to kill him in one blow. Chen Ji patted the storage bag at his waist, and a refined corpse wearing black iron armor appeared out of thin air. This refined corpse had an extremely dense corpse aura. It was a third-level low-grade refined corpse. Wang Daoyuan was not afraid of this refined corpse. A third-level low-grade refined corpse was only slightly more resistant than a second-level high-grade refined corpse. An ordinary peak foundation establishment cultivator might not be able to take down this refined corpse, but Wang Daoyuan had the Earth Divine Thunder. The 5 elements Divine Thunder had the power of heavenly thunder. It could hit heretic cultivators, refined corpses, and little ghosts accurately. He no longer used the sky-cleaving sword, and instead began to condense the Earth Divine Thunder. After many years of practice, he could now release 3 bolts of Earth Divine Thunder in one breath. 1 bolt of Earth Divine Thunder was 30 times more powerful than a second-level high-grade golden knife talisman. The refined corpse pounced at him, and he rode the kite into the sky. No matter how strong the refined corpse was, it could not fly. It could only jump high and pounce at its target in the air. It could also wave its hands and release sword chi like claw marks. Wang Daoyuan dodged calmly in the air, and kept releasing Earth Divine Thunder to hit the refined corpse. The refined corpse's spiritual activity was extremely low, and it could not dodge the extremely fast Earth Divine Thunder. Every bolt of Earth Divine Thunder that hit the refined corpse left a fist-sized hole in its body. The corrosive effect of the Earth attribute spiritual power came into play, and a sizzling sound was heard. The refined corpse kept moving its body, trying to avoid the corrosion of the Earth attribute spiritual power. However, just as it ran, it was hit by a few more bolts of Earth Divine Thunder, and was once again enveloped by the Earth attribute spiritual power. Wang Daoyuan fought with the refined corpse for half a cup of tea's time, and after releasing more than 50 bolts of Earth Divine Thunder, his spiritual power was almost depleted, and he finally crippled the refined corpse. After crippling the refined corpse, he immediately took out a jar of spirit peach dew, and drank a few mouthfuls to recover his spiritual power. Fortunately, the Beiyuan Phantom no longer needed spiritual power, and he only needed to control it with his divine sense. However, the Beiyuan Phantom had absorbed too much spiritual power, and it was very stressful for him to control it. On the other side, Chen Ji was being chased by the Beiyuan Phantom and Wu Yi. 20 breaths later, Wang Daoyuan had recovered about half of his spiritual power, and he rode the kite once more, releasing Earth Divine Thunder to chase after Chen Ji. Chen Ji's body was incomparable to an inferior grade 3 refined corpse, and he was on the verge of death after taking 5 bolts of Earth Divine Thunder. Before he died, he shouted indignantly, "I've planned for 100 years, and yet I've fallen to such a state. I can't accept this." Wang Daoyuan ended his life with a single bolt of Earth Divine Thunder. After keeping Chen Ji's corpse into the space of the Spirit Pearl, he heard a voice that was clear and domineering from the mountains, "Who are you, thief? How dare you kill my man?" Chapter 355. Wang Daoyuan naturally recognized who it was, the Shanbei Branch's Hall Master, Scarlet Fox. She was a veteran Violet Palace realm cultivator, and Wang Daoyuan had seen many Violet Palace realm cultivators. Scarlet Fox's spirit energy fluctuation was the closest to Yang Yong's, and she should be a mid-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator. With his current strength, if he encountered an ordinary early-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator, he should be able to escape unscathed after exchanging 2 moves like Shizhenbang did in the past. But when facing a mid-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator, it was impossible to escape unscathed, and he would be extremely lucky to be able to leave alive. After hearing Scarlet Fox's voice, he immediately rode the kite and fled towards the depths of the Heaven/Mountain range with Wu Yi. At this moment, he was already able to see that there was a person wearing a black robe and riding a fiery red flying sword 5 or 6 kilometers behind him, chasing after him. Her flying speed was extremely fast, and her speed was at least 3,700 kilometers in 2 hours. If that was all, it wasn't much, as she was slightly slower than Wang Daoyuan's flying kite. Wang Daoyuan had already entered the Heaven/Mountain range, and Violet Palace realm cultivators didn't dare rashly enter. But he underestimated a woman's desire for revenge. Scarlet Fox didn't even hesitate and directly entered the Heaven/Mountain range. Afterwards, another flying sword flew out from Scarlet Fox's hand and headed straight for Wang Daoyuan. The Beiyuan image that Wang Daoyuan condensed hadn't been activated yet, and it had always been by his side. But the image had absorbed too much fire spirit energy, and it consumed divine sense extremely quickly. He'd wanted to withdraw the Beiyuan image since long ago, but fortunately, he didn't have the time to withdraw it, and it came in handy now. The Beiyuan image spat out 3 fireballs at the flying sword, but they were easily slashed into sparks that filled the sky. Afterwards, Wang Daoyuan controlled the Beiyuan image to extract fire spirit energy from the flying sword. Although the flying sword was extremely fast, and the Beiyuan image couldn't extract much time, it was more or less useful. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan was an entire 6 or 7 kilometers away from Scarlet Fox. Violet Palace realm cultivators were only barely able to reach this distance. The flying sword's might and agility were greatly reduced. In addition, the Beiyuan's shadow had been extracting the spiritual power of the flying sword, so its power had not reached the point where he could not shake it. Wang Daoyuan did 3 things at once. He controlled the Beiyuan's shadow, the flying kite, and began to gather the Earth Divine Thunder in his hands. His Earth Divine Lightning was only at the 3rd level. If he used it against someone at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage, he would be able to severely injure them in one blow. Even an early-stage Zifu disciple would be heavily injured by this technique. But when dealing with an intermediate-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator like Crimson Fox who wasn't even a heretic, it was slightly insufficient. However, the Earth Divine Lightning was extremely fast, so it was quite useful against flying swords. With the speed of the kite, the flying sword could not catch up in an instant. He continued to unleash Earth Divine Lightning at the flying swords. A series of explosions rang out, and the speed of the flying sword was greatly reduced. After unleashing 7 Earth Divine Thunders, the flying sword was finally repelled. The continuous use of the Earth Divine Lightning had worsened his already small reserve of spiritual energy. He immediately drank a few mouthfuls of the spirit peach wine. Since he didn't have time to refine it, he could only rely on his body to automatically absorb the spirit wine to restore his spiritual power. After drinking the spirit wine, he would immediately begin to restore his spiritual power. In order to restore all of his spiritual power, he would still have to wait for dozens of breaths. But now that he was being chased by a middle-stage Zifu disciple, life and death could be decided in the blink of an eye. The flying sword was knocked back. Crimson Fox caught it, saying, "You little thief, your strength isn't weak. To think that you were able to cultivate the Earth Divine Lightning to such a level." By now, Wang Daoyuan had already closed the distance to roughly 7 kilometers. Even a middle-stage Zifu disciple would find it hard to harm him. He laughed, "If I don't have a woman in my heart, my magic will naturally be divine. But for a lady like you to chase after 2 men, where are your manners?" This time, Crimson Fox was enraged. Fire spirit energy surged from his entire body as he put away his flying sword, transforming into a fire phoenix and pouncing towards him. This speed was much faster than the kite. Some high-level evasion techniques could be used by cultivators below the Golden Core stage, allowing them to traverse the skies for a short period of time. For example, the meteor evasion technique Shi Jinbang had used back then, as well as the fire phoenix before him. Seeing that the distance was getting closer and closer, Wang Daoyuan really wanted to slap himself twice. He was used to scolding others normally and had nothing better to do. Whenever he saw a beauty, he would want to tease her. Crimson Fox praised him, and if he said a few nice words, she might stop chasing after him. Now that he had angered her to the point that she had even used an evasion technique to traverse the skies, wasn't he courting death? In merely 10 breaths of time, Crimson Fox had caught up to a distance of 200 to 300 feet behind Wang Daoyuan. Relying on the Beifong Phantom to extract fire spirit energy was completely useless. How long would it take to extract the spiritual power of a middle-stage Zifu disciple? Controlling the Beifong Phantom, he smashed towards the Fire Phoenix. The Beifong Phantom with a wingspan of over 1,000 feet contained an ocean of fire spirit energy. Even Crimson Fox had no choice but to be cautious. When the Beifong Phantom smashed over, she dodged. Wang Daoyuan would not let go of this opportunity and directly detonated the Beifong Phantom. Instantly, 1,000 feet wide sea of fire appeared before Crimson Fox. She could not guarantee that she could pass through unscathed, but she did not want to be burned as well. Hence, she could only circle around. Cultivators below the Golden Core realm could not maintain traversing the skies for a long time to begin with. They could only rely on a spurt of energy. After dodging and circling, Crimson Fox's energy had already dissipated and her speed was greatly reduced. It was difficult for her to continue. She also knew that it was impossible for her to catch up to Wang Daoyuan and started to cast spells to attack. The Fire Phoenix Phantom opened its mouth and spat out a stream of flames towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to release his water dragon art. Otherwise, if she recognized him, wouldn't she massacre the entire Wang family to vent her anger? Controlling the flying kite, he dodged a few times. Unfortunately, the spells of a Zifu disciple were aimed at the target. Using his water attribute spirit energy, he executed the Black Tortoise Sword Shield, a sword cultivation spell of the Origin Return Sword Sect, conjuring a shield phantom in an attempt to block the flames. When the flames struck the sword shield, half a breath later, both the flying sword and the shield phantom were burned into ashes. In a moment of desperation, Wang Daoyuan took out the Mystic Ice Jade Marrow to block the flames. Initially, he thought that the Mystic Ice Jade Marrow was finished. To think that he had underestimated its power. Under the stimulation of the flames, the Mystic Ice Jade Marrow released a large amount of ice fog. The flames were completely extinguished and the Mystic Ice Jade Marrow was unharmed. This time, he did not dare to run his mouth and headed straight towards the depths of the heaven/mountain range. Crimson Fox dispersed the Phoenix Phantom and landed on the ground. The spirit energy on her body was still intense. Suddenly, a flying sword appeared in front of her. The spirit energy on the sword far surpassed the previous 2 swords. It was her destiny dermic weapon. At that moment, the distance between Wang Daoyuan and Crimson Fox was around 6 miles. At such a distance, spells would not be powerful and the flying sword would not be able to unleash 100% of its lethality. However, this flying sword was a destiny dermic weapon after all and could not be underestimated. Its speed was extremely fast as well and it covered the distance of 6 miles in an instant. Wang Daoyuan did not have time to dodge and could only use the Tiger Fiend sword that Chen Ji had heavily injured to block it. The Tiger Fiend sword was instantly burned to ashes and the fiery red sword flew straight towards Wang Daoyuan's back. It was time for the clone to show its effect. Wang Daoyuan controlled the clone Wu Yi to use the golden armor art to block his back while he used the earth armor art himself. The flying sword was too powerful and the defensive spell was instantly broken. The flying sword pierced through Wu Yi's right collarbone. After piercing through Wu Yi, it broke through Wang Daoyuan's earth armor art and pierced through his left shoulder blade. The tip of the sword came out from the front of his body. The 2 of them were pierced through and the sword pierced through his heart. The blade was less than half an inch away from his heart. Fortunately, he had the mystic jade golden silk armor that his younger brother gave him. This item was personally refined by Daoist Lei Yan and its defensive ability was extremely strong. Although it was only second-tier upper grade and could not block the flying sword, it was able to wear down the flying sword's strength and the spirit energy attached to it. Otherwise, the fire attribute spirit energy on the flying sword would be enough to burn his heart to ashes. Even so, the remnant fire attribute spirit energy seeped into his meridians and burned many of them. His lungs were severely damaged and his wounds were charred as well. Wang Daoyuan wrapped the sword with water attribute spirit energy and ground away the fire attribute spirit energy on the flying sword before forcing it out. At that moment, Scarlet Fox used his spirit consciousness to retrieve the flying sword. Although Wang Daoyuan managed to escape, the clone Wu Yi was brought back by the flying sword. Since he could not even protect his own life, he could not care about his clone. Wu Yi's memories had been altered by him and did not know his secrets. Even if he was lost, it would only be a split soul. At that moment, the distance between Wang Daoyuan and Scarlet Fox was more than 7 miles. By the time she retrieved her flying sword and injected spirit energy into it, Wang Daoyuan was already more than 10 miles away. Wang Daoyuan barely escaped death. When he saw that Scarlet Fox was no longer chasing after him, he heaved a sigh of relief and thought to himself, Zhou Xian, that fortune-teller, is really accurate. It's truly a love calamity. Chapter 356. At this moment, 20 to 30 li east of Wang Daoyuan, a tiger's roar could be heard. From the sound of it, it should be from a rank 3 tiger-type demon beast. Wang Daoyuan was severely injured and his spirit energy and spirit consciousness were greatly depleted. He did not dare to stroke the tiger's whiskers. Immediately, he changed his direction and flew towards the southeast. Initially, Scarlet Fox wanted to continue chasing Wang Daoyuan. However, when she heard the tiger's roar, she had no choice but to give up. The commotion from the battle earlier on was too great and alarmed the rank 3 demon beasts. If she continued chasing, these rank 3 demon beasts might not care about Foundation establishment cultivators, but they would definitely deal with her, a Zifu realm cultivator. She was still carrying the dying Wu Yi and was extremely curious as to why Wu Yi would block the sword for his opponent. Putting away her destiny dermic weapon, she took away the remaining fire attribute spirit energy in Wu Yi's body. Thereafter, she fed him a few healing elixirs and flew towards the west with Wu Yi on her sword. She was a Zifu realm cultivator. If it was a Foundation establishment cultivator, they would not have the ability to fly on their sword. Scarlet Fox did not dare to put Wu Yi into a spirit beast bag either because spirit beast bags could only barely sustain living beings. Demon beasts could rely on their strong physical bodies or hibernate abilities to stay in spirit beast bags for long periods of time without causing severe damage to their bodies. Humans did not have strong physical bodies nor special abilities such as hibernating. If they were kept in spirit beast bags for a long time, their lives might be in danger. Most Qi refinement cultivators could only stay for a day or two while Foundation establishment cultivators could only stay for 3 to 4 days. After coming out of spirit beast bags, they would also enter a weakened state and require a long time to recover their combat abilities. Mortals could not enter spirit beast bags either, they would definitely die if they entered. Therefore, even in the era where countries fought for hegemony, there were very few situations where spirit beast bags were used for sneak attacks. As long as they were discovered by the enemy, they would basically be sending their heads to their deaths. At this moment, Wu Yi only had a single breath left. If he was kept in spirit beast bags, he would probably not even last for half a cup of tea's time. In Wang Daoyuan's situation, his injuries were only slightly lighter than Wu Yi's. After drinking spirit wine twice, he still had a lot of spirit energy but not much spirit consciousness. He released Li Qingxuan from the space of the spirit pearl and let him control the flying kite. He took out the spirit-gathering pearl and used the blue dragon pearl to extract vitality to heal himself. His external injuries quickly recovered, but his meridians needed some time to recuperate. As for the sword that pierced through his lungs, it would be difficult for him to recover without a year or so of rest. Moreover, this was under the condition that his wood attribute spiritual energy had its own vitality. If it were an ordinary cultivator, such a serious injury would definitely leave behind a lifelong illness. If one's cultivation was hindered, even their lifespan would be affected. Although he was seriously injured this time, he had at least obtained the yin-yang purple jade. He had also personally sparred with a Zifu disciple, and had gained some understanding of the Zifu disciple level. It would also be helpful in establishing the Violet Palace realm. He did not plan to return to the Jade Spring Peak. Instead, he headed to the Five Elements Mystery Realm. After spending a few years in seclusion there and recovering from his injuries, he would establish his Violet Palace in the Secret Realm. With the concealment of the Secret Realm, there was no need to worry about the secret being leaked. After all, he was a member of the Netherworld sect. Once he opened his Violet Palace, he would have to go to the Netherworld sect to take up a post and accept the Netherworld sect summons at any time. It would be very difficult for him to have the opportunity to travel outside. It would be better for him to establish his Violet Palace in the Elemental Mystery Realm and then use the Aura Concealment Art to conceal his cultivation base. As long as he didn't come face to face with Golden Core cultivators, he wouldn't be discovered. It wouldn't be too late to expose himself when he couldn't hide it any longer. He didn't encounter any danger on the way. When he arrived near the Elemental Mystery Realm, he put Li Qingxuan and Feiyun into the space of the Spiritual Pearl. He walked to the outermost door of the Elemental Mystery Realm and took out his token to open the door. As soon as he entered, a Foundation Establishment cultivator attacked him, but Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and repelled him. After taking a closer look, he discovered that it was his 27th brother, Wang Daojian. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan recalled that he still maintained the appearance of Wu Chuan. He returned his appearance to normal and asked, "What? You don't even recognize your 7th brother? When did you establish your foundation? How come I didn't know?" Wang Daojian let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "So it's you, 7th brother. I saw that you looked like a stranger and thought that an enemy had invaded. My 17th brother, 18th brother, and I were arranged to secretly establish our foundation here. I'm still considered a bit late. My 2 brothers have been here for more than 30 years. The 17th brother of the Dao generation was Wang Daoheng, who was good at brewing wine. The 18th brother was Wang Daoping, who was good at concocting pills. Both of their main spiritual roots were more than 7 inches. They were both potential foundation establishment cultivators. However, Wang Daoyuan rarely cared about the trifling matters of the family, so he didn't know much about them. He took out the inheritance of the Guiyuan sword sect from the space of the spiritual pearl and handed it to Wang Daojian. He said with a smile, "I already knew that you were suitable to walk the path of a sword cultivator. This is the inheritance of the Guiyuan sword sect. Unfortunately, it's incomplete. There's only the sword controlling technique and a few spells. There's no way to condense sword intent." Wang Daojian took the jade scroll excitedly and said with a smile, "Thank you, 7th brother. This is enough." Wang Daoyuan walked into the mystery realm while Wang Daojian continued to look at the door. After entering the mystery realm, he greeted Wang Daoheng and Wang Daoping and burned a few sticks of incense for the 5 elements spiritual master. Then, he entered the underground cave under the altar where the 5 elements heaven suppressing seal was. This was the core of the 5 elements mystery realm. He could recuperate here and prepare to break through without worrying about being disturbed. The injuries on his body couldn't be healed in a short period of time. He needed time to recuperate. Taking advantage of this time, he wanted to see if Chen Ji had anything good on him. There were 7 storage pouches hanging on Chen Ji's waist. Wang Daoyuan opened them one by one. The 6 storage pouches were filled with coffins. 5 of them were high-grade second-tier magic tools that contained high-grade second-tier refined corpses. There was also a low-grade third-tier magic tool that was empty inside. The coffin should be the third-tier refined corpse that he killed with the Earth Divine Lightning. The 7th storage pouch finally contained something useful. First was the boat-type flying magic tool. It was very similar to the crane feather boat, but it was made of higher-grade materials and flew faster than the crane feather boat. However, its weakness was also very obvious. It couldn't take a beating. It was stronger than the crane feather boat, but not by much. Its practical value was far inferior to the flying kite. Such a weak magic tool shouldn't have been left behind by the 10,000 corpse spiritual master. Next, he took out a fiery red longsword. It was the same one that Chen Ji used before. This sword was a low-grade third-tier magic tool. The words, "Prairie Fire," were engraved on the side of the sword. It seemed that this sword should be called the Prairie Fire Sword. The power of this Prairie Fire Sword was indeed quite good. If he didn't know the divine fire burning heaven technique, he would have been able to suppress this sword. Perhaps Chen Ji didn't even need to take out the refined corpse. He could easily defeat him with the Prairie Fire Sword. There was also a small round shield in the storage pouch. It was also a low-grade third-tier magic tool, but there were no words engraved on it. The main material of the shield was third-tier glazed flames mysterious iron. Its strength was quite good. A foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to break it. It just so happened that Wang Daoyuan's 2 high-grade second-tier tiger fiend swords and mysterious jade golden silk armor had been destroyed. These 2 magic tools could be used first. There were only a few second-tier magic tools left in the storage pouch. Wang Daoyuan really didn't care about them. Apart from the magic tools, there were some talismans, medicinal pills, and a few thousand spirit stones. Not to mention that this guy had obtained the inheritance of the 10,000 corpse spiritual master. Even if he was just the number 1 assassin of the Blood Shadow Mountain's northern branch, he shouldn't only have such trash. Could it be that he had placed all his wealth elsewhere? It was definitely impossible for him to place it in the Blood Shadow Mountain's branch. That was Scarlet Fox's territory. If he placed his things there, they might not be his anymore. It was possible for him to place them in the Yellow Spring Secret Realm. However, the location of the Yellow Spring Secret Realm had already been exposed. With Chen Ji's craftiness, the possibility of him placing them there wasn't too high. Chen Ji was already dead. If he placed them somewhere else, they wouldn't be able to find them anymore. Wang Daoyuan had Li Qingxuan search Chen Ji's entire body. In the end, he found a ring in the bottom of his boots. Chapter 357. The soles of Chen Ji's boots were specially thickened, and a small hole was dug at the right heel. The ring was wrapped in silk woven from soul-restricting silk and placed in this small hole. With the soul-restricting silk, even Zifu realm cultivators would not be able to discover this thing with their divine sense. It was just that the place where it was hidden was a bit disgusting. This ring was an interspatial ring, and Chen Ji hid it so carefully, so the things inside were definitely not ordinary. This interspatial ring was simple in design and looked a bit old. It should have been left behind by the 10,000 corpse Taoist. This thing needed to recognize its owner before it could be opened. For safety reasons, it was better to let Li Qingxuan do it. After half a cup of tea's time, Li Qingxuan successfully recognized the interspatial ring as its owner. He used his divine sense to explore the interspatial ring, and saw that it was a space of 10 square feet. If he took it out to auction, he would get 300,000 spirit stones. There were a lot of things inside, and the most eye-catching thing was an earthy yellow bead with a diameter of about 5 inches. This earthy yellow bead was not unfamiliar to Wang Daoyuan at all. It was a spirit spring bead. Generally, spirit springs of grade 3 and above would condense some spiritual items over time, and the most common one was a spirit spring bead. The spirit spring bead usually contained a huge amount of water attribute spiritual energy. If it was merged into a water attribute spirit vein, it would help the water attribute spirit vein to upgrade. In addition to a huge amount of water spiritual energy, there was also Yin Qi and Death Qi in this spirit spring bead. Obviously, this thing was a spirit spring bead born from the yellow spring in the yellow spring secret realm. The main material of the black tortoise shield in the refining method given by Luo Jiuyo was the spirit spring bead. This underworld bead was also a type of spirit spring bead, and refining the black tortoise shield was no problem at all. However, this thing contained a huge amount of death qi. If it was refined into a black tortoise shield and stored in the dantian, the death qi would corrode the body, and an ordinary person would very likely become a walking corpse. Wang Daoyuan's would attribute spiritual energy, which carried life force, could suppress the death qi. However, it consumed a large amount of would attribute spiritual energy, which seriously affected the cultivation speed. This thing was very suitable for evil cultivators. For ordinary cultivators, it could only be seen but not used. However, for Wang Daoyuan, this thing was not without value. As long as the death qi within the underworld bead was exhausted, only yin qi and water attribute spiritual energy would remain within the bead. After that, refining it into a black tortoise shield would be no problem at all. The yin qi within it was perfectly compatible with Wang Daoyuan's water attribute spiritual energy. Li Qingchuan's doppelganger took out a disc that was carved with floating runes. He loaded it with spiritual stones and put it next to the life spiritual fire. Placing the underworld bead over, the underworld bead floated above the life spirit fire. The underworld bead made contact with the spiritual fire of life, producing a sizzling sound. The area that came into contact with the spiritual fire of life dimmed and turned slightly black. Soon, the deathly aura inside the underworld bead once again surged to the surface of the bead. The originally blackened areas disappeared, returning to an earthy yellow color. The death qi that gushed out was consumed by the flame of life, and the cycle repeated. Without the nourishment of the yellow springs, the death energy within the underworld bead was like water without a source. Although there was a lot of it, it would be used up sooner or later. The life spirit flame, on the other hand, was supplied with wood attributed spiritual power by the peach tree sapling and the entire space in the spiritual pearl. As long as it was slowly consumed, the death energy within the underworld bead would be completely depleted. There were also a few grade 3 ghostly Dao and corpse Dao Dharma weapons in the universe ring. They were the corpse suppressing bell, the soul capturing bottle, the Yin gathering flag, and a grade 3 superior grade corpse nurturing coffin. There was no grade 3 superior grade corpse in the corpse nurturing coffin. Other than these grade 3 Dharma weapons, there were also some shards of grade 4 Dharma weapons. Back then, the Venerable of 10,000 Corpses was ganged up on by a group of golden core cultivators and escaped with heavy injuries. Even his grade 4 Dharma weapon was shattered. After a Dharma weapon was shattered, it would decay rapidly without the protection of the tool patterns. Furthermore, the Venerable of 10,000 Corpses had passed away in the underworld secret realm. The deathly aura and yin qi there were extremely dense and corrosive towards Dharma weapon shards. These Dharma weapon shards had already been mostly corroded by the deathly aura. Without special treatment, they were almost useless. There was also a disc array in the universe ring. This was the disc array for the Vermilion Bird Divine Fire formation. It was the same set that Wang Daoyuan used against the grade 3 corpse when he entered the underworld secret realm with a group of itinerant cultivators at Mirror Treasure Lake. There was also a disc array that was broken into several pieces. It was the one that was shattered by the corpse. Wang Daoyuan was now a grade 3 inferior grade array master, and the Vermilion Bird Divine Fire Formation was a grade 3 inferior grade array master. For the time being, he could not refine the broken disk array. However, it was not a bad idea to keep this disk array for now. In the future, when his array skills reached grade 3 inferior grade, he could repair it. In addition to these, there were 3 beast-skinned books in the Universe Ring. They were the Spirit Commandeering Record, the Vast Sea Observation Record, and the 10,000 Corpses Secret Book. The Spirit Commandeering Record recorded the information of the Venerable of 10,000 Corpses sect, the Imperial Regency. The Vast Sea Observation Record recorded the life of the Venerable of 10,000 Corpses, including his escape from the Imperial Regency and his journey to Beiyuan Xiaofan. It also included many situations in the Immortal cultivation world where the Imperial Regency was located. The 10,000 Corpses Secret Book recorded the creation of the 10,000 Corpses Formation and the repair of the Doppelganger Soul Nurturing Technique. These 3 beast-skinned books were extremely useful to Wang Daoyuan. In the future, if he wanted to repair the Doppelganger Soul Nurturing Technique so that his soul could be healed, he would inevitably have to refer to the contents recorded in the 10,000 Corpses Secret Book. According to the Vast Sea Observation Record, the Immortal cultivation world where the Imperial Regency was located was called the Qixing Sea Xiaoxian Community. It was located in the vast sea to the east of Beiyuan Xiaoxian, countless miles away. In the center of the Qixing Sea Xiaoxian Community were 7 incomparably huge islands. It could even be said that they were continents. Each of the islands was much larger than the state of Zhao. The combined area of the 7 islands should not be smaller than that of Beiyuan Xiaoxian. Around the 7 islands, there were countless small islands. In terms of cultivation, the Qixing Sea Xiaoxian community was much stronger than that of Beiyuan Xiaoxian. Before the Imperial Regency was destroyed, there were still some soul formation cultivators there, and there were also many Yuanying cultivators there. After the Imperial Regency was destroyed, the 10,000 Corpses spiritual master hid from place to place. With his extraordinary talent, his cultivation reached the Violet Palace realm. After that, he was chased by his enemies and could not stay any longer, so he went all the way west. After going through untold hardships, he finally reached Beiyuan Xiaoxian. This book recorded the route he took from the Qixing Sea Xiaoxian community to Beiyuan Xiaoxian. With this route, when he wanted to break through to Yuanying in the future, he could go to the Qixing Sea Xiaoxian community, where there was an opportunity to break through to Yuanying. There was an extremely important piece of information in this route. That was, the 10,000 Corpses spiritual master did not come from Linhai when he came to the west of the Sky Beheading Mountain range. Instead, he came from a place north of Huiyan Mountain, crossing the Sky Beheading Mountain range. This was extremely valuable to Wang Daoyuan. This meant that in the future, the Wang family could use this place to secretly cross the Sky Beheading Mountain range and develop to the east. To the east of the Sky Beheading Mountain range was the vast sea and countless islands. Once the Wang family moved over, they would be able to fly freely in the sky and jump freely in the sea. They would no longer be restrained. Some information about the inheritance of the Imperial Regency was recorded in the Sprite Commandeering Record. Of course, it was only a simple introduction and did not have a specific inheritance. The Imperial Regency was the overlord of the Qixing Sea Xiaoxian community in the past, and it had many soul formation cultivators. The sex beast taming, corpse refining, and puppet refining were all superior to the entire cultivation world. In the records about puppet techniques, the Yellow Spring Willow was mentioned. High-level puppets needed to be controlled by a soul. This soul could be a human or a demonic beast. However, a normal soul needed to be protected by a physical body in order to exist for a long time. Furthermore, puppets made from various materials could not protect the soul like a fleshly body. This required some special materials that could allow the soul to exist for a long time. There was more than one spiritual item that had this effect, and the yellow spring willow was one of them. Chapter 358. Apart from the yellow spring willow, the sprite commandeering record also mentioned other soul-nurturing spiritual items. However, the formation of these spiritual items required tens of thousands of years. The yellow spring willow was a spiritual plant that could grow on its own and was the only soul-nurturing spiritual item that could be regenerated in a short period of time. Therefore, the sprite commandeering record had a more detailed description of the yellow spring willow. The yellow spring willow didn't necessarily have to live by the yellow spring. It could grow in places with dense yin qi. It had the ability to transform yin qi into death qi, and death qi was actually also evolved from yin qi. Yin qi was relatively pure and wasn't corrosive. Therefore, some of the higher-ups of the Netherworld sect only relied on yin qi to cultivate and didn't have a ghostly appearance. They didn't look much different from ordinary cultivators. Death qi was extremely heterogeneous and usually appeared on refined corpses and ghosts. It was extremely destructive to all living things. The yellow spring willow could quickly grow in places with dense yin qi and death qi. Its wood contained both yin qi and death qi, similar to ghosts. Therefore, it could nurture souls. Wang Daoyuan thought of a good way to use the yellow spring willow. He was about to establish his violet palace. However, the doppelganger soul-nurturing technique left by the myriad corpse Taoist master was very unreliable against violet palace realm cultivators. If he wasn't careful, his soul would be damaged. However, the inky jade lotus seed in his hand didn't have the ability to repair the soul of a violet palace realm cultivator. After reaching the violet palace realm, he didn't dare to use the doppelganger soul-nurturing technique. Now that he had the yellow spring willow, things were easier. He could first split some of his soul and use the wood to store it for future use when refining clones. While he could still use the inky jade lotus seed to recover his soul, it wasn't a big deal to lose these soul fragments. He wasn't afraid of splitting too many soul fragments and causing problems to his soul's origin. A person's soul's origin was between the soul's eyebrows. As long as the soul's eyebrows weren't damaged, the origin wouldn't be damaged. The reason why the cultivation speed of clones was extremely slow and their comprehension was extremely poor was because when they were refined into clones, their soul's origin was severely damaged. The complete doppelganger soul-nurturing technique could repair the soul's origin to a certain extent. The cultivation speed of the clones wouldn't be too affected, but their comprehension would still be poor. However, the version repaired by the myriad corpse Taoist master didn't have this ability. Therefore, Wang Daoyuan did not have extravagant hopes that his clone could break through to the next realm. The yellow spring willow was most suitable to be used to refine ghost-rearing artifacts. It contained a large amount of death qi, so it was not very good to use it to store divided souls. A normal living person's divided soul did not have the aura of death. If it was stored in the yellow springs willow for a long time, it would be corrupted by the aura of death sooner or later, turning into an incomplete ghost. A living soul was different from a ghost. A ghost could no longer coexist with a physical body. At that time, it wouldn't be able to merge with the host soul, and it wouldn't listen to the host soul's orders. Ordinary yellow springs willow wood was used to preserve a divided soul. After 20 to 30 years, the divided soul would not be able to use it. Wang Daoyuan's yellow springs willow was not bad. It grew beside the Gue water death flame and absorbed pure yin qi. The death aura could only be transformed by itself, and its concentration was relatively low. If he used the yellow springs willow to preserve his soul fragment, he should be able to preserve it for 100 years. The yellow springs willow's ability to absorb yin qi and death aura was quite strong. However, Wang Daoyuan would not let it absorb the death aura and yin qi in the yellow springs bead. The yin qi was useful. If too much was absorbed by the yellow springs willow, it would affect the power of the Black Tortoise shield. If too much death aura was absorbed, the Yellow Springs willow wood would become unsuitable for preserving divided souls. He did not intend to walk the path of the corpse ghost. The Yellow Springs willow wood with too much death aura was useless to him. This Yellow Springs willow had grown in the space of the spirit pearl for hundreds of years. Its trunk was now less than 2 inches in diameter and a little more than 10 feet tall. Wang Daoyuan planned to chop it down and refine it into an artifact to store divided souls. As for refining puppets, he did not have any inheritance. In the future, when he went to the Qixing Si Shuxian community, his cultivation would have to be at least in the late Golden Core stage. It would be at least 300 to 500 years from now. Other than storing divided souls, the Yellow Springs willow had no other use in a short period of time. He chopped the trunk and left the roots for it to slowly grow. After a year of healing in the underground cave, his injuries had completely recovered. He could begin to use the Yellow Springs willow to refine artifacts to store divided souls. There was nothing special about the artifact to store divided souls. The refining method was no different from ordinary Ghost Dao artifacts to raise ghosts. He just needed to use the Yellow Springs willow wood to refine it. The artifact that Wang Daoyuan wanted to refine was called the Soul Nourishing Pendant. It was a long pendant that was 3 inches long and 1.5 inches in diameter. The entire Yellow Springs willow was only enough to refine about 20 of them. Although it was not difficult to refine the soul-nourishing pendant, Wang Daoyuan did not have any experience in refining Ghost Dao artifacts. He failed to refine the first few. In the end, he only managed to refine 20 soul-nourishing pendants. It was useless to refine too many. This thing was used to store divided souls. There was a time limit, and the doppelganger soul-nourishing technique could not refine too many doppelgangers at the same time. It was enough to leave about 20 divided souls as backup. Then, he began to use the soul-splitting blade to divide his own soul. He separated 20 divided souls, which accounted for 1% of the total soul, and stored them in the soul-nourishing pendant. He did not dare to put the soul-nourishing pendant in the space of the spirit pearl. With the flow of time 40 times faster, 2.5 years in the outside world would be 100 years in the space. At that time, his divided souls would be crippled. Lin Yun stored the 20 soul-nourishing pendants in his interspatial ring and wrapped it with the soul-restricting silk. He would eat the inky jade lotus's seeds as snacks every day. It did not take long for his soul to recover. He had already made the preparations to establish the Violet Palace realm. As long as the opportunity came, he would be able to establish the Violet Palace realm. Previously, he was beaten up by the Scarlet Fox, which could be considered as accumulating valuable experience for establishing the Violet Palace realm. Furthermore, he had personally witnessed his 5th great-uncle establishing the Violet Palace realm. He also had the insights of his patriarch, the 5 Elements Daoist, and the Scarlet Fox establishing the Violet Palace realm. Wang Daoyuan wasn't completely clueless when it came to comprehending the opportunity to establish the Violet Palace realm. After 2 years, he suddenly had a trace of enlightenment. It was as if the door to the Violet Palace realm was right before him. There was a gap between the 2 doors. As long as he walked over and gently pushed, he would be able to enter the door. He had the insights of 4 people, so he naturally knew that the opportunity to establish the Violet Palace realm had arrived. There was no need to worry about the strength of his physical body and soul. There was absolutely no problem. Before he could establish the Violet Palace realm, he had to open up the upper, middle, and lower dantians. The upper dantian was the space between his brows, where his sea of consciousness was located. The middle dantian was the Shanzhong acupoint, which was the main heart meridian. It was also the place where spiritual energy and spiritual sense interacted. The lower dantian was the Guanyuan acupoint, which was where spiritual energy was stored. Wang Daoyuan stored all the spiritual energy in his body into his lower dantian and compressed it with his spiritual sense. When it reached the point where it could no longer be compressed, he drove the spiritual energy from his lower dantian to his middle dantian. After the connection was made, he poured all the spiritual energy into his middle dantian and continued to compress it. After compressing it, he started to charge into his upper dantian. The meridians in the head were the densest, and they weren't as strong as the torso and four limbs. There were too many vital points in the head, and if any of them were injured, he would lose his life. Thus, he couldn't open up the meridians like he did with his middle dantian. He condensed his spiritual energy into a strand and slowly explored it from his middle dantian. After spending half a day, he finally succeeded in creating a thread-like passage in the meridians between the middle and upper dantian. This passageway wasn't enough for him to establish the Violet Palace realm. He had to continue expanding it with spiritual energy. A day later, the passageway between his middle and upper dantian was completely opened. Wang Daoyuan slowly poured his spiritual energy into his upper dantian. The water's spiritual energy contained pure yin qi, which was extremely beneficial to his soul. Under the nourishment of the spiritual energy, his soul became stronger and stronger. It had already surpassed the limits of a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Soon after, a tiny whirlpool appeared in his sea of consciousness. When the whirlpool appeared, it began to extract the pure yin qi from his soul and the pure yang qi from his body. The pure yin qi and the pure yang qi fused together to form purple qi. At this moment, purple light was shining from outside the cave. Everyone in the elemental mystery realm could clearly see the purple light. 2 hours later, an illusory purple ball with a diameter of 1 inch appeared outside the cave. Chapter 359. The purple palace grew bigger as it absorbed the purple qi. When it reached 9 inches in diameter, it stopped absorbing the pure yin and pure yang qi from Wang Daoyuan's body and soul. When fifth great uncle opened his purple palace, it was only 3 inches in diameter. It was already possible for him to open his golden core. Normally, the purple palace of a less talented cultivator was only 1 or 2 inches in diameter. Wang Daoyuan's body was full of blood qi. His soul had already reached the limit of a foundation establishment cultivator. The purple palace was already 9 inches in diameter. If he opened his purple palace outside, it would definitely cause a commotion. At this point, he was halfway to opening his purple palace. At this moment, 5 different colored spiritual energies appeared out of nowhere and surrounded the purple palace. This was the sign of the purple palace anomaly. When fifth great uncle opened his purple palace, a dragonfish appeared. When a cultivator cultivated a multi-elemental cultivation technique, the purple palace anomaly would appear when they opened their purple palace. Wang Daoyuan was a penta-spiritual roots cultivator and cultivated the 5 elemental cultivation technique. When the purple palace anomaly appeared, it meant that all 5 of them appeared. The 5 streams of spiritual energy gradually turned into 5 huge balls of spiritual energy. The 5 balls of spiritual energy continued to transform. In the end, the green spiritual energies became the azure dragon, the black spiritual energies became the black tortoise, and the yellow spiritual energies became the kirin. The red spiritual energies and the silver spiritual energies became the vermilion bird and the white tiger respectively. Maybe it was because the 5 spirit immortal art only condensed the wood, water, and earth spiritual energies, but not the fire and metal spiritual energies. Although the 5 divine beasts were the same size, the azure dragon, the black tortoise, and the kirin were more agile and solid. Their spiritual energies were also stronger. The vermilion bird and the white tiger were more rigid and their spiritual energies were weaker. At this moment, the 5 elemental heaven-suppressing seal beside Wang Daoyuan started to vibrate. Even the entire 5 elemental secret realm started to vibrate. The 5 elemental divine beasts on the seal emitted a dazzling light and pointed at the corresponding divine beasts. 5 streams of pure spiritual energy flew out of the button and merged with the divine beast's shadow beside the embryonic form of the violet palace. The divine beast's shadows became more solid and agile. They didn't become bigger, but slowly became smaller. In the end, the phantom of the divine beast transformed into a divine beast pattern with a diameter of about 1 inch. It was engraved on the embryonic form of the purple palace. It was extremely rare for a purple palace realm anomaly to produce a divine beast. Perhaps even a peak power like Adept Thunderflame had never seen a phenomenon where multiple divine beasts appeared. After the Purple Mansion phenomenon ended, Wang Daoyuan felt that his soul was being attracted by the Purple Mansion and was struggling to break free from his sea of consciousness. A dozen breaths later, a gray smoke emerged from between his eyebrows. The gray smoke floated out and condensed into a human figure near the embryonic form of the Violet Palace. At first, the humanoid gray fog was more than 20 feet tall, and its face was blurry. After that, the gray mist gradually shrunk. When it shrunk to 9 inches tall, it was unable to shrink any further. At that moment, the gray mist figure's face was very clear. It looked exactly like Wang Daoyuan. As long as his soul could enter the Purple Palace, the opening of the Purple Palace would be considered successful. The tiny gray mist figure walked towards the Purple Manor. It wanted to enter, but there was no door. Following that, the tiny gray mist figure sat down cross-legged and fell into an illusion. This was the beginning of the mental demon tribulation. Wang Daoyuan had been worried that there would be problems during the process of opening the Purple Palace. He had already held the yin-yang purple jade and mystic ice chalcedony in his hands. Although his soul had left his body, the connection between the soul and the body had not been severed. The mystic ice chalcedony could still be used. However, his mental demon tribulation was nothing special. Wang Daoyuan had cultivated for 100 years and had never done anything against his conscience. Although he had killed many people, he had never killed the innocent. There was no mental demon left behind. When his parents were alive, he rarely took care of them. However, he had sent many spirit grains and ginseng to them. His parents and brother had lived a rich life and died of old age. They did not have any regrets and died with smiles on their faces. Wang Daoyuan felt that he had lived up to their expectations and would not have any mental demons. His mental demon tribulation could only be the fear left behind by being struck by lightning in his previous life. In the illusion, Wang Daoyuan saw the scene before he was struck by lightning in his previous life. First, his master passed away. Then, he took care of his master's funeral. After everything was taken care of, he checked his master's belongings in the thatched hut. Then, a purple lightning bolt fell from the sky and struck Wang Daoyuan into ashes. He clearly remembered how he died in his previous life, but he had seen through it when he was 20 years old in this life. The mental demon tribulation did not cause any hindrance. The gray mist figure sat down cross-legged. After a few breaths, a door opened in the Purple Mansion. The gray mist figure stood up and walked into the Purple Mansion. The door closed. The Purple Mansion slowly fell back into the sea of consciousness. Thus, the opening of the Purple Mansion was completed. The yin-yang purple jade that he had risked his life for decades was useless. The Wang family had another Purple Mansion realm cultivator. The clansmen outside also began to cheer. Wang Daoyuan's soul was sitting cross-legged in the Purple Mansion. Although the Purple Mansion was only 9 inches in diameter from the outside, the space inside was not small. A 9-inch tall soul was nothing in the Purple Mansion. There was nothing in the Purple Mansion except for dense purple qi. The soul began to absorb the surrounding purple qi, nourishing it and turning it into a divine soul. At that moment, the spiritual pearl in the sea of consciousness that had not moved for 100 years became active. It scurried around in the sea of consciousness as if it was looking for something. The soul-extinguishing bell that he had kept in the sea of consciousness was also smashed away by the spiritual pearl. After it ran around in the sea of consciousness for a while, it ran to the side of the purple mansion. After circling the purple mansion a few times, it began to absorb the purple qi from the purple mansion. When Wang Daoyuan looked into his sea of consciousness, he could clearly see that there was a crooked crack on the spiritual pearl that was about 3 inches in diameter. The purple qi that the spiritual pearl absorbed was absorbed from the crack. At first, the purple mansion did not react and allowed the spiritual pearl to absorb the purple qi. But the spiritual pearl seemed to want to go from bad to worse. It absorbed more and more purple qi, and the entire purple mansion began to shake. The 5 elements divine beast patterns on the outer layer of the purple mansion began to move as if they were alive. They roared and intimidated the spiritual pearl. But the spiritual pearl ignored them and continued to absorb the purple qi. The 5 elements divine beast patterns shone brightly and protected the purple mansion. The purple mansion anomaly was not only related to minor abilities and divine abilities, but it also protected the purple mansion. When a purple mansion realm cultivator was attacked by the divine consciousness, the purple mansion was the last line of defense for the soul. The phenomenon in the Violet Palace realm was the last line of defense that Lin Yun had added a layer of protection. The spiritual pearl could no longer absorb the purple qi and began to smash into the purple mansion. The entire purple mansion began to shake as if it could collapse at any time. In order to prevent the purple mansion from collapsing, Wang Daoyuan could only endure the pain and use the yin-yang purple jade. Fortunately, he was prepared and had the yin-yang purple jade in his hand. Otherwise, he would be in danger. He extracted the purple qi from the yin-yang purple jade and absorbed it into his body and sent it to the sea of consciousness through his meridians. When the purple qi entered the sea of consciousness, the spiritual pearl no longer smashed into the purple mansion. Instead, it snatched the newly arrived purple qi. He used his divine consciousness to control the purple qi to fly to the purple mansion and snatch a portion of it from the spiritual pearl. After consuming about 1/10 of the purple qi in the yin-yang purple jade, the purple mansion stabilized. When Wang Daoyuan stopped extracting the purple qi, the spiritual pearl went berserk again and continued to smash into the purple mansion. The spiritual pearl was truly a living ancestor. In order to make it let go of the purple mansion, Wang Daoyuan could only continue to extract the purple qi from the yin-yang purple jade. The purple mansion could also absorb more purple qi, allowing his soul to transform into a divine soul and stabilize his purple mansion realm. If the spiritual pearl continued to smash into the purple mansion, his cultivation level might fall. An hour later, the entire yin-yang purple jade was emptied. The purple mansion had absorbed a lot of purple qi and was more stable than before. His soul had also completely transformed into a divine soul, and the original gray mist figure had turned purple. His divine soul had taken shape, and his divine consciousness had improved greatly. He wanted to use his divine consciousness to explore the surroundings and see how far he could explore. Outside the purple mansion, the spiritual pearl began to smash into the purple mansion again. It had absorbed more than half of the yin-yang purple jade, so the force of the collision was even stronger. In just 3 strikes, a hole with a diameter of about 3 inches had appeared in his purple palace. Chapter 360. The spiritual pearl entered the purple mansion through the hole and then released a large amount of purple gas to repair the hole in the purple mansion. Before Wang Daoyuan could react, the spiritual pearl had already taken his soul into its space. After his soul entered the spiritual pearl space, he suddenly felt a strong sense of belonging. It was like returning home to see your parents after leaving home for many years. He did not see the familiar spirit field. It was pitch black all around. Then, in the darkness, a large piece of land and a mountain range that ran from north to south appeared. Beyond the land, it was still pitch black. The land was extremely flat, with the exception of the mountain range. Then, the mountain range became taller and longer. The land also began to expand in all directions, and the sun, moon, and stars appeared in the sky. Moreover, Wang Daoyuan felt that the northernmost part of the mountain range looked familiar. Then, he saw the situation inside the mountain range. There was a huge spirit vein that ran through the entire mountain range. The spirit vein constantly produced gray and purple spirit energy. Most of the spirit energy dissipated outside the mountain range. A small part of the spirit energy gathered in a cave at the northern end of the mountain range. After many years, a large amount of spirit energy gathered and compressed in the cave, finally condensing into a gray and purple pearl. This pearl was like a bottomless pit, constantly absorbing the spirit energy in the spirit vein. On the ground, small mountain ranges began to appear. In these mountain ranges, new spirit veins were also produced. Whether it was the scale or the amount of spirit energy produced, these spirit veins could not be compared to the first mountain range. Moreover, the spirit energy in these small spirit veins was different from the first mountain range. Wang Daoyuan had cultivated for many years, so he was naturally familiar with spirit energy. Although he could not feel it personally, he could tell that the spirit energy belonged to the 5 elements based on its color. Even the non-elemental spirit energy was gray and white, unlike the first mountain range, which produced gray and purple spirit energy. After the spirit energy was divided into the 5 elements, wind, frost, rain, and snow began to appear on the ground. Rain fell from the sky, forming streams that converged into large rivers. In general, this land was high in the west and low in the east. The rivers flowed from west to east. At the easternmost low-lying area, water from countless rivers gradually formed an ocean. Then, plants, fish, insects, birds, and beasts began to appear. The entire land became lively. The earth had also become extremely vast. Wang Daoyuan focused his attention on the vicinity of the bead. The spiritual qi in the first mountain range gradually changed. It changed from its original grayish-purple to grayish-white. It was exactly the same as the spirit qi in the non-elemental spirit veins that were formed later. Other than being larger in scale and producing richer spirit qi, there was nothing special about it. As for the grayish-purple bead, there was no change, and it was still absorbing spiritual energy. Later on, a new species appeared on the earth, human beings. When humans were first born, they were still extremely weak and could only be the vassals of some powerful races. The races that Renlei had attached himself to, including dragons and phoenixes, were all worshipped as divine beasts by later generations. However, although humans were physically weak, they had great potential for growth and could imitate the abilities of other races. Of course, the ability imitated was not as powerful as the original, but its power was still not to be underestimated. In Wang Daoyuan's opinion, these imitated abilities should be the original cultivation methods and spells. Humans gradually became stronger by imitating the abilities of various powerful races. In the end, some powerhouses that could compare to divine beasts appeared in the human race. The human race also became a powerful race that could stand side by side with the dragons and phoenixes. The human race relied on their strength to occupy a piece of territory and continued to expand this territory. In the human race's territory, the other races either submitted or hid in the mountains and dense forests. Now, other than divine beasts, the other races were called demons by the human race. In the northernmost corner of the human race's territory, a mountain range that ran from east to west extended to the east. Finally, it extended to the range of the first mountain range and could not continue to the east. In this mountain range that ran from east to west, there were many springs in the mountains that converged into streams. The streams in the south of the mountain flowed south and finally converged into a large river. The large river flowed from west to east and was finally blocked by the first mountain range. The river flowed into the mountain range and passed through the mountains. Finally, it passed through the mountain range and flowed east into the sea. These rivers, mountain ranges, and even some individual peaks were very familiar to Wang Daoyuan. Then, north of the large river, a river appeared next to the first mountain range. It gathered many streams in the first mountain range and flowed south into the large river. To Wang Daoyuan, this river and the source of the river were too familiar. It was his territory. He was sure that this first mountain range was the Heaven/Mountain Range. The mountain range that ran from east to west was Mount Huiyan. The large river was the Wanchuan River, and the tributary of the Wanchuan River near the Heaven/Mountain Range was the Qingli River. After countless years, a huge black rift appeared in the sky above the Heaven/Mountain Range. Countless strange-looking creatures surged out of the rift and slaughtered all the native lives they could see. Not long after, the black rift disappeared. The strength of the human race and the demon race was not enough to resist these creatures. These strange-looking creatures were recorded in the Beiyuan records. They were called demons. The demons were not native to the great world where Beiyuan Xiuxian was located. Instead, they had fled from other worlds. Their purpose in coming here was to take over this world for themselves. The human race and the demon race had been at war for countless years, fighting for the position of the overlord of this great world. Now that the demons wanted to exterminate all the native races, the human race and the demon race could only work together to resist the powerful demons. The demons were outsiders after all. They were not like the human race and the demon race, who had an endless supply of soldiers. The human race and the demon race used this advantage to fight a war of attrition with the demons. After thousands of years of war, the low-level demons were largely exhausted and could no longer occupy large territories. The demons could only withdraw their forces and resist stubbornly. The human race and the demon race also gathered their forces for the final battle with the demons. The location of this final battle was near the location of the grayish-purple pearl. Although the human race and the demon race alliance were stronger than the demons in terms of overall strength, they were still inferior in terms of high-level combat strength. The demons still had a chance of victory. In the final battle, to make up for the lack of high-level combat strength on their side, a human cultivator fought 5 high-level demons. In the end, the human cultivator exhausted his cultivation and slashed with a heaven-shaking sword. The 5 experts of the demon clan also used their special skills to resist this sword. The collision this time could truly be said to be earth-shattering. The Heaven/Mountain Range was directly severed at the waist. A pitch-black crack of unknown length appeared on the ground. This crack was the absolute heaven abyss that separated Beiyuan Xiuxian. That grayish-purple pearl was also cut open by this sword. This crack was exactly the same as the crack on the spirit pearl. After the pearl was cut open by this sword, a strand of dazzling brilliance was born from the inside. Following that, the pearl fell into the absolute heaven abyss, passed through the endless void, and arrived on a blue planet. This planet was even more familiar. It was precisely his previous life's Earth. The place where the pearl landed was precisely within China's borders. The spiritual energy in the pearl continuously leaked out. Finally, the brilliance converged, looking like an ordinary glass pearl. Wang Daoyuan could confirm now that this pearl was the spirit pearl in his purple mansion. The spirit pearl was nurtured by the Heaven/Mountain Range. After being cut open by a sword, it drifted to earth. After passing through several hands, it landed in his previous life's hands. Then, his soul was brought back to Beiyuan Xiuxian by this spirit pearl. It was just that he could not understand. This spirit pearl should have changed hands many times before. Why didn't it attract lightning to strike its owner to death and bring his soul back to Beiyuan Xiuxian? Chapter 361. The 4 seasons changed, and after countless spring, summer, autumn, and winter, there were signs of human habitation at the place where the spirit pearl was. However, at that time, the people were still primitive people wearing animal skins. When this group of primitive people was digging a hole to build a house, a strong man dug out the spirit pearl and gave it to his pregnant wife. When the spirit pearl was in the hands of the pregnant woman, the ray of light that was produced when the crack was created shone again, illuminating the whole tribe. The light came out from the crack of the spirit pearl and entered the woman's belly. In the spirit pearl, there was still a very weak ray of light. The baby in the woman's belly had not yet formed and did not have a soul, so the ray of light entered the baby's body. The shaman in the tribe immediately rushed over. He saw the spirit pearl as a treasure given by the gods and worshipped it. Only during a major sacrifice, he was willing to let it out. A few months later, the woman gave birth to a baby boy. The scene in front of Wang Daoyuan's soul was divided into 2 parts, one was the location of the spirit pearl, and the other was the child's experience. The shaman attached great importance to this baby boy and trained him into a new shaman. After a few decades, the shaman became old and passed the spirit pearl to the baby boy. After the shaman died, the little shaman took out the spirit pearl during a major sacrifice. Imitating the old shaman, he dripped his blood on the spirit pearl. Just as he was about to recite a nonsensical spell, a purple lightning bolt as thick as a bucket struck him and killed him. After that, the spirit pearl was seen as an ominous object and the new shaman threw it away. After the little shaman died, his soul reincarnated. The spirit pearl changed hands many times and was no longer valued, nor did it attract lightning. The little shaman's reincarnation instinctively went to find the spirit pearl. After hundreds of reincarnations, he found the spirit pearl a dozen times. Every time he touched the spirit pearl, he was immediately struck by lightning without needing to drip his blood. However, the lightning that struck the little shaman's reincarnation became weaker and weaker. When the little shaman's reincarnation was struck to death for the last time, the scene of purple lightning from the sky attracted a Taoist priest who could fly. The Taoist priest saw that the spirit pearl was extraordinary and wanted to refine it into a magic tool. Unfortunately, the spirit pearl was too hard and the Taoist priest could not move it at all. The Taoist priest injected his spiritual energy into the spiritual bead, and the bead immediately absorbed the spiritual energy like crazy. The Taoist priest stopped injecting spiritual energy and brought it back to the sect. He set up a spirit gathering array and placed the spirit bead in it. More than 1,000 years had passed since then. The spirit bead had been in the spirit gathering array, constantly absorbing spiritual energy, but there was no change. That Taoist priest ascended to immortality, and his sect gradually declined. Hundreds of years had passed, and only one sect master remained. He couldn't even defend the mountain gate, and there weren't many inheritances left. The sect leader also dripped a drop of blood essence on the spirit pearl, but the spirit pearl did not react. He left the mountain gate with the spiritual bead and made a living by swindling people. Decades later, the sect leader's black hair turned white. Wang Daoyuan recognized who the sect leader was. It was his master from his previous life. In another scene, the little wizard was once again reincarnated. In this life, he was adopted by the old priest. As the child grew up, Wang Daoyuan knew what happened next. The child that the old Taoist had adopted was himself. Only now did he understand that not everyone would be struck by lightning, but he was the one struck by lightning. Unfortunately, the scenes that showed his reincarnation were not very clear. Most of the scenes showed what he had experienced. Otherwise, after hundreds of reincarnations, the insights gained would be enough to make a true immortal envious. Of course, it was more likely that he would go crazy. At this point, the scene became clear. In the scene, the young him was conducting destructive experiments on the spirit bead. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and there were a few muffled sounds of thunder, but there was no lightning. After the old Taoist priest died, he played with the spirit bead again. The dark clouds in the sky gathered for a long time before finally condensing into a purple lightning as thick as a chopstick. It struck Wang Daoyuan and turned him into ashes. After the purple lightning struck, the dark clouds in the sky dissipated. Wang Daoyuan's soul was absorbed into the spirit bead. The remaining light in the spirit bead wanted to merge with Wang Daoyuan's soul. Unfortunately, the soul of a mortal was too weak and could not bear the light, let alone merge with it. The remaining purplish-gray fog in the spirit bead surged violently and absorbed the entire thatched cottage into its internal space. A pitch-black crack was torn open on the spot, and it entered through the crack. The spirit bead passed through the void and returned to the place where it was born. By chance, the spirit bead came to Qingxi village and was picked up by Wang Daoyuan's mother. The spirit bead brought Wang Daoyuan's soul into his mother's womb and merged with the unformed fetus. The fetus gradually took shape, and there were 5 colored spiritual energies swimming around its body, nourishing its organs. The spirit bead absorbed more than half of the spiritual energies. The purplish-gray fog in the spirit bead also slowly transformed into 5-colored spiritual energies and gradually condensed into soil. After that, the scene in front of Wang Daoyuan's soul collapsed and turned into a thin ray of light. The ray of light scattered and turned into a small piece of light that scattered between the eyebrows of his soul and disappeared. This time, it successfully merged together, and he did not feel any difference. Wang Daoyuan understood that his soul was the main body of the light that was born in the spirit bead. After breaking through to the Violet Palace realm, his soul turned into his soul and had the ability to carry the light. Previously, the spirit bead collided with his Violet Palace realm so that this ray of light could merge with his soul. His soul suddenly began to descend, and after an unknown period of time, it entered the spirit bead space. In the past, he only used his divine sense to explore the space, or he used his avatar to observe the space. This was the first time his soul entered the spirit bead space. After looking at the space, there were no changes to its size and concentration of spiritual energy. The only difference was that a spiritual vein was born in the space. Beside the 3 spiritual fires, there were 3 spiritual veins that were 1 foot long: wood, earth, and water. The concentration of spiritual energy produced was only at the mid-grade of the first grade. 5 feet to the south of the earth spiritual vein, a fire spiritual vein was born. 5 feet to the west of the fire spiritual vein, a metal spiritual vein was born. However, the fire and metal spiritual veins were only 3 inches long, and they were both at the low grade of the first grade. These spiritual veins were too small, and their grades were too low. They did not have a significant effect on the concentration of spiritual energy in the space. His soul noticed that the earth spiritual vein was not only producing spiritual energy, but it was also producing soil particles. However, the rate of production was very slow. He had been in the space for over 10 days, and the amount of soil particles produced by the earth spiritual vein was only about the size of an adult's hand. Wang Daoyuan had read many books, and the Beiyuan records mentioned that earth spiritual energy and soil were essentially the same thing. The spiritual energy of the 5 elements would slowly condense into matter of the 5 elements, and it was normal for earth spiritual energy to condense into soil. The spiritual vein's function was to turn the matter of the 5 elements into spiritual energy. The spiritual energy and objects in a world were constantly transforming into each other. However, the transformation of Earth's spiritual energy into soil was extremely slow, and it was difficult to notice. But in the space, the transformation was too fast. However, there were 5 small spiritual veins in the space that were constantly transforming the matter of the 5 elements into spiritual energy, so there was no need to worry about the concentration of spiritual energy decreasing. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan realized that he had not stabilized his cultivation after breaking through to the Violet Palace realm. As soon as he thought of leaving, his soul immediately left the space of the spiritual pearl and returned to the Violet Palace realm. Most of the clansmen in the five-element secret realm had calmed down, but the three foundation establishment cultivators were extremely anxious. They had read the Violet Palace realm notes left behind by their ancestor, and they knew that the Violet Palace realm would quickly absorb large amounts of spiritual energy. It had been 7 days since Wang Daoyuan's Violet Palace realm entered the Sea of Consciousness, but there were still no signs of it absorbing spiritual energy. They did not know what was going on, and they did not dare to disturb Wang Daoyuan. They could only wait outside anxiously. Suddenly, a spiritual energy whirlpool with a diameter of over 300 feet appeared above the altar. In just 5 minutes, the spiritual energy in the secret realm was completely sucked dry. Even the spiritual veins were no longer emitting spiritual energy. Wang Daoyuan was at the intersection of the 5 spiritual veins in the secret realm. All the spiritual energy in the spiritual veins had been sucked out by Wang Daoyuan. Chapter 362. The disappearance of the spiritual energy caused the other clansmen to panic, but the 3 foundation establishment cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. This meant that Wang Daoyuan didn't have any problems establishing his purple mansion. 6 hours later, Wang Daoyuan's physical body cultivation also reached the early stage of the purple mansion realm. He stopped extracting spiritual energy, and the 5 spirit veins also continued to release spiritual energy into the secret realm. The spiritual energy in the entire secret realm started to slowly recover. After stabilizing his cultivation, Wang Daoyuan woke up from his meditative state and studied the situation in the spirit pearl space. Previously, in the space, he only paid attention to the newly appeared spirit veins and didn't pay attention to anything else. He used the method of lighting an incense to test the flow of time inside and outside the space. The result was still the same, the flow of time inside the spirit pearl space was still 40 times faster. The spirit pearl was still in the purple mansion, absorbing the dispersing purple energy. This would seriously affect the growth of his soul, so he wanted the spirit pearl to stop. But just as he had this thought, the spirit pearl stopped absorbing the purple energy. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to believe that this guy was so obedient. He let the spirit pearl continue absorbing the purple energy, and sure enough, the spirit pearl started absorbing again. The speed of absorbing the purple energy could also be controlled by him. He let the spirit pearl move, and the spirit pearl trembled slightly, but didn't move. Using the power of his divine sense, he wanted to move the spirit pearl, but the spirit pearl only trembled slightly. Wang Daoyuan guessed that maybe his divine sense wasn't strong enough to move the spirit pearl. But at least he saw hope, and it was much better than completely ignoring him in the past. He tried to put his body into the spirit pearl space, but there was no reaction. It seemed that if he wanted to enter the spirit pearl space with his physical body, he needed to have the ability to move the spirit pearl out of his body. Looking from the outside of the spirit pearl, the original purplish-gray fog was already gone. Between the spirit pearl's space and the spirit pearl's outer shell, there was still a vast void. His divine sense entered this void from the crack in the spirit pearl's outer shell, and after exploring for a long time, he still couldn't find the boundary of this void. Wang Daoyuan's soul was born when absolute heaven abyss was formed, and the spirit pearl was formed when this world was born. He only watched the process of the spirit pearl's formation once, and didn't personally participate. He also didn't know what this spirit pearl was, and why the spirit veins of the heaven/mountain range would give birth to the spirit pearl. As for how much the spiritual pearl could grow in the future, he had no idea. He didn't worry about this matter any longer. After all, he'd only just attained the Violet Palace realm. The complete heaven/mountain range was the core of this great world, and the spirit pearl had been nurtured by the heaven/mountain range for countless years. It was not realistic for him to study the spirit bead thoroughly now. The cracks on the spiritual beads also needed to be fixed. Otherwise, some things would leak out and seriously affect the growth of the space. However, he still had no idea how to repair the crack. His divine soul entered the spirit pearl space and checked the underworld pearl. He had been in seclusion in the Five Elements mystery realm for more than 3 years, which meant that more than 100 years had passed in the space. The death aura within the underworld bead was almost completely depleted, and the entire bead had turned black. It wouldn't take long for him to start crafting the black tortoise shield. There were still 3 clones in returning Wild Goose City Square. Wu Yi was probably done for, and Bai Sheng was still safe. There was no need to worry about these 2 clones. Lu Zong, on the other hand, could not give up so easily. After all, he was an important pawn for him to continue obtaining the yin-yang purple jade. Moreover, he was pursued so miserably by Crimson Fox that he almost lost his life. If he didn't go back and take revenge, he wouldn't be able to swallow this anger. Given his current strength, he was no match for Crimson Fox. After all, Crimson Fox was a mid-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator with a natal magic weapon and a high-level escape technique that could traverse the void. His cultivation couldn't catch up to Crimson Fox for now, and he wouldn't be afraid of her after refining his natal magic weapon into the Black Tortoise Shield. In terms of high-level escape techniques, he didn't know if his complete cloud mist escape could allow him to traverse the void. He needed to return to the clan and cultivate it. He picked up the soul-extinguishing bell that was smashed away by the spirit bead earlier and kept it in his sea of consciousness. Then, he left the underground cave and returned to the surface. His divine sense could actually cover a distance of 15 li, far exceeding the detection range of an ordinary early-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator of around 10 li. He took out a mid-grade Grade 2 Tiger Fiend sword and controlled it to attack. Within a range of 2.5 li, he could command it as if it was his own arm. This level was about the same as Crimson Fox. When he came to the secret realm previously, he was heavily injured and didn't have the mood to carefully observe the situation inside. Now that he scanned with his divine sense, he saw that there were already thousands of mortals and more than 10 chi refinement cultivators in the secret realm. They had also opened up several hundred mu of spirit fields. The demon beasts in Fallen Dragon Ridge had all been killed. With flying boats, it wasn't difficult to transport some people to the secret realm. The last time he came to the elemental secret realm was when he had just established his foundation. At that time, his 5th great-uncle brought his 6th uncle and several other great-uncles over to take care of the secret realm. Now that 60 years had passed, his 6th uncle and several other great-uncles had already passed away. Wang Daoyuan went to pay his respects to them and instructed his 3 Foundation establishment brothers not to reveal the fact that he had established his Violet Palace. Afterwards, he used the aura concealment technique to suppress his spiritual energy fluctuations to peak Foundation establishment before leaving the elemental secret realm and returning to Jade Spring Peak. After returning to Jade Spring Peak, he didn't greet the others and went straight to the scripture tower. As usual, Tai Gong was lying on a deck chair under an ancient pine tree. He was already over 230 years old and would reach the end of his lifespan in the next few years. It was unknown whether it was because of his innate talent or because he had damaged his foundation, but his cultivation had always been stuck at the 9th layer of foundation establishment. Wang Daoyuan walked to the ancient pine tree and saluted, "Tai Gong, I want to exchange for the complete version of the cloud mist escape." Tai Gong didn't even think before replying, "You can't cultivate it unless you're in the Violet Palace realm." Wang Daoyuan didn't say anything and revealed a trace of powerful spiritual energy fluctuations. Immediately, 2 divine senses probed over. One of them was stronger and should belong to his 5th great-uncle. The other one was weaker and should belong to his 12th uncle. Taigong's face was filled with joy as he transmitted his voice. You've established your violet palace? Wang Daoyuan nodded. Taigong happily stood up and brought him to the 3rd floor of the scripture tower. Taigong took out a jade slip from a bookshelf and removed the restriction on it before handing it to Wang Daoyuan. He said with a smile, "This jade slip has been on the bookshelf and hasn't been touched for hundreds of years. However, it has been taken out twice in the last few decades. Once you've memorized the contents, hurry up and cultivate." Wang Daoyuan memorized the contents of the jade slip and returned it. After bidding farewell to Taigong, he returned to his cave abode and began to comprehend the complete version of the Cloud Mist Escape. The complete version of the Cloud Mist Escape had a high requirement on one's spiritual sense. It was no wonder that one needed to be in the Violet Palace realm to comprehend it. Naturally, his speed was also extremely fast. In a short distance, he could travel half a mile in the blink of an eye. Even if he used it for a long time in the water, his speed would be comparable to a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. If he cultivated the Cloud Mist Escape to a high realm, he would be able to transform into clouds. As long as there was a place where clouds could float in, he could use the Cloud Mist Escape to enter. It was suitable for drilling through cracks in rocks and walls. If they encountered a sky full of fog, they could hide anywhere at will. Then, they would really be able to appear and disappear unpredictably. The Cloud Mist Escape also had the ability to cross short distances in the air. When he condensed clouds, he would be able to fly in the clouds. However, the consumption of spiritual energy and spiritual sense was terrifying and the pressure on his body was great. Wang Daoyuan didn't care about the consumption of spiritual energy, but he still had to take into consideration the large consumption of spiritual sense. With his spiritual sense cultivation, he would only be able to cross the air for about 100 breaths and reach a speed of over 4,500 miles in 2 hours. With the complete version of the Cloud Mist Escape, he would be able to escape from Scarlet Fox if he couldn't defeat him. After comprehending the Cloud Mist Escape for a day in his cave abode, Wang Daoyuan left Jade Spring Peak and headed to Fallen Dragon Ridge to cultivate the Cloud Mist Escape. There were too many clansmen on Jade Spring Peak and it wasn't convenient for him to cultivate. The complete version of the Cloud Mist Escape was of the same origin as the Cloud Mist Escape that he had previously cultivated. It didn't take him much effort to cultivate it. It only took him a day to master it and he could cross the air in half a month. Chapter 363. After finishing the Cloud Mist Escape, Wang Daoyuan began to cultivate the 4th level of the Earth Divine Lightning. The Earth Divine Lightning that Daoist Thunderflame gave him only had 4 levels in total and could only be cultivated up to the early Violet Palace realm. However, once the 4th level of the Earth Divine Lightning was combined with the powerful divine sense of a Violet Palace realm cultivator, its power would increase greatly. Relying on the speed of the 5 elements Divine Lightning and its explosive destructive properties, the 4th level of the Earth Divine Lightning would be a great threat to a mid-Violet Palace realm cultivator. However, it was not enough to deal with a late Violet Palace realm cultivator. Although the power of the Earth Divine Lightning would increase with the increase of the user's cultivation, the increase would not be great. Currently, the 4th level of the Earth Divine Lightning was more than enough to deal with a mid-foundation establishment cultivator like Scarlet Fox. If a magical technique manual was incomplete, it could be slowly repaired through practice. For a magical technique like the 5 elements Divine Lightning, it was basically impossible to repair it without understanding the magical technique. Unless he could obtain the complete Gue Water Divine Lightning in the future. The 5 elements Divine Lightning was closely related and had a lot in common. He could try to use the Gue Water Divine Lightning to deduce the contents of the Earth Divine Lightning. Wang Daoyuan used a month's time to cultivate the 4th level of the Earth Divine Lightning to the small success stage. Within the space of the Spirit Pearl, the death aura within the Netherworld Pearl had been completely cleansed. It was time to refine his first life-bound magic tool. The main material for the black tortoise shield was the spirit spring pearl. However, in order to increase the shield's strength, he needed to use a smelting method to fuse some high-strength water attribute materials. He did not have any third-grade water attribute materials, but there should be quite a few in the clan's treasury. After all, the old ancestor was a water attribute cultivator and should have collected a lot of such materials when he was alive. Nurturing a life-bound magic tool was also a painstaking effort. Fifth great-uncle had established his Violet Palace for so many years and spent most of his time in seclusion in his cave to nurture his life-bound magic tool. Especially when the life-bound magic tool had just taken shape, it could not be disturbed in the slightest. Therefore, it was better to go to Jade Spring Mountain to complete the most crucial process of forming the magic tool. After returning to Jade Spring Mountain on his sword, he went to the administration hall to look for the 12th uncle. In the end, only the third brother was there. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Where is the 12th uncle? I want to ask him for some refining materials. Why isn't he here to handle the family affairs today?" Wang Daochang smiled and said, "After you came back last time, the 12th uncle said that his cultivation was too low and he had to go into closed-door training. He hasn't come out yet." Wang Daoyuan immediately understood. Last time, when he came to take the complete smoke escape, there was a fluctuation of spiritual energy. The 12th uncle had noticed it and suffered a blow. As the great elder, the third brother also held the key to the clan's treasury. Asking him would be the same. "Third brother, I need a few tier 3 water attribute materials. Do you have any in the family treasury?" Wang Daochang replied without hesitation, "The clan's treasury that I control only stores grade 1 and grade 2 phase. The phase above grade 3 were all placed in the clan's secret treasury. Only the patriarch and the grand elder had the key to the secret treasury. 5th granduncle and 12th uncle are both in closed-door training. You can ask great-grandfather to get it for you." Wang Daoyuan left the executive hall and went to the hidden scripture tower. When he came to the ancient pine, great-grandfather asked, "How is your cultivation of the smoke escape?" Wang Daoyuan bowed and said, "I can already fly through the air. I want to refine my natal artifact. The main materials have been prepared. I still need some strong water attribute materials as supplementary materials. 5th granduncle and 12th uncle are both in closed-door training. I can only look for you." Great-grandfather nodded and asked, "Your talent in cultivation has always been good. The smoke escape won't be a problem for you. However, you are a penta-spirit roots cultivator and cultivate all 5 elements. Why do you only refine a water attribute natal artifact?" Wang Daoyuan answered, "I helped the Netherworld sect to build flying warships and treat the injured. The sect master rewarded me with a set of 5 elements natal artifact refinement methods. There are a total of 5 artifacts. Now, I only found one main material for a water attribute natal artifact. I will refine this one first." Great-grandfather stood up and brought him to the ancestral temple. His hands formed a complicated seal and hit the great ancestor's altar. Then, a hole appeared under the altar. Great-grandfather smiled and said, "Follow me. I don't have many years left. You have opened up the purple mansion and are the pillar of the family. After I die, the key to my secret treasury will be handed over to you." Wang Daoyuan followed behind great-grandfather and went into the hole. The hole could only allow one person to crawl in. After entering the hole, the inside was slightly more spacious. Behind the hole was a stone staircase that extended to the south. After walking to the bottom of the staircase and walking south for another 100 feet, there was a huge door. The door should be located under the Jade Dragon Spring. This door was made from a mixture of various grade 3 metals, and it was engraved with dense engravings of tool runes. Great-grandfather took out a 3-inch long jade sword and threw it at the door. When the jade sword touched the door, it emitted a gentle white light and the door slowly opened. Great-grandfather walked through the door and said, "This is the treasury that the great ancestor meticulously built. It contains his life's collection. You can look around and see if there are any other main materials for a natal artifact." Wang Daoyuan followed great-grandfather into the treasury and was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the Wang clan to still have such a rich family after so many years of decline. After entering the door, there were 5 shelves made of grade 3 spirit wood on both sides. On each shelf, there were 50 to 60 spiritual materials of a certain attribute. These materials could be sold for nearly 1,000,000 spirit stones. Continuing to walk inside, there were 5 smaller shelves, each of which held a magic tool of the 5 elements. Wang Daoyuan still had the prairie fire sword and the glazed flame dark iron shield. He didn't need any grade 3 artifacts. As they walked further in, there were 2 platforms made of jade. On the left jade platform, there was a black longsword, a black soft armor, and a shield. Judging from the spiritual energy fluctuations on these 3 artifacts, they were definitely grade 4 artifacts. They should have been left behind by the great ancestor. This longsword was the Wang clan's natal artifact, the profound dragon sea cover sword. On the right jade platform, there were several pieces of grade 4 materials. Great-grandfather smiled and said, "These are all our family's assets. See if there's anything you need." Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, "There's no problem with the supplementary materials for a water natal artifact. Grade 3 Blackwater iron crystal is very good. As for the other 4 artifacts, I haven't found the main materials yet. I'm not in a hurry to refine them. I'll just use one natal artifact first." Great-grandfather asked curiously, "You asked Shui to help you find information about dragon bloodline demonic beasts. Are natal artifacts related to dragon bloodline demonic beasts?" Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, "They are indeed related. One of the natal artifacts requires a pseudo-dragon ball. You also know that there are only a few grade 3 dragon bloodline demonic beasts in the entire Zhao. It's easier said than done to find a pseudo-dragon ball." Great-grandfather smiled and said, "Actually, our clan also has pseudo-dragon balls. Back then, the great ancestor's dragonfish was also a dragon species with an extremely high concentration of dragon blood. At grade 3 lower grade, it gave birth to a pseudo-dragon ball. Unfortunately, it was besieged and killed in battle with the great ancestor. The pseudo-dragon ball was also damaged. Now, the carcass of the dragonfish and the pseudo-dragon ball are still in this Jade Spring Peak. Is such a pseudo-dragon ball useful to you?" Wang Daoyuan shook his head and said, "I don't need a grade 4 pseudo-dragon ball to refine artifacts, but it must be complete. I don't know how damaged the pseudo-dragon ball is, so I don't dare to say whether it can be used or not." Great-grandfather took out the 3-inch-long jade sword again and placed it on the ground between the 2 jade platforms. The stone slab on the ground moved away, revealing a hole. Great-grandfather smiled and said, "This is our Wang clan's backup plan to preserve our lineage. The carcass of the dragonfish and the pseudo-dragon ball are all placed below." Chapter 364. Wang Daoyuan followed Taigong into the cave. There were still long stone steps below. They walked down the stone steps for more than 200 feet and arrived at a platform. On this platform, there was a fork in the road. Taigong pointed at the stone steps that continued to extend downwards and said, "This is the escape route left behind by the family. When the ancestor was still alive, he spent more than 200 years to extend it to the northeast corner of the family territory, which is near Tai Chiu Peak." After saying that, he led Wang Daoyuan to the fork in the road. After walking for more than 100 feet, there was another door in front of them. This door was protected by a large array. Taigong took out a token and injected spiritual power into it. The token flickered, and the door opened automatically. An aura that made one's legs go weak came out. This aura was much stronger than that of an ordinary golden core cultivator. Moreover, this aura was mixed with a feeling that made one want to worship it. This should be the dragon's aura. How powerful was the dragon's aura that could make non-aquatic creatures want to worship it? After the two of them used the water dragon armor, they immediately felt better. The dragon's aura was gone. It seemed that the arowana recognized them as family. After walking a few feet into the door, they saw a stone platform inside. On the platform was an aqua-blue spirit beast with a dragon head and a fish body. Its image was exactly the same as the Wang family's emblem. The entire arowana was more than 30 feet long, and the dragon head was more than 5 feet long. Looking at the size alone, it was really nothing. Yunyi's waist circumference was more than 30 feet. However, this arawana's dragon head was indeed extraordinary. Its head was like a camel's, its horns were like a deer's, its eyes were like a rabbit's, and its ears were like a cow's. There was no obvious difference between it and the legendary true dragon. It was not easy for ordinary dragon species to be similar to true dragons in one or two aspects. For an arowana whose dragon head was no different from a true dragon, how high was the concentration of its dragon blood? If it did not die, it might transform into a true dragon in the future. Behind the dragon head was a fish body that was more than 20 feet long and a tail that was more than 6 feet long. Moreover, this arowana did not look like it had been dead for hundreds of years. Instead, it looked like it was asleep. A level for dragon species was full of treasures. Dragon pearls, dragon horns, dragon scales, dragon bones, dragon tendons, and so on were all good materials for refining level 4 artifacts. The dragonfish died in battle before the old ancestor. Later, it was said that the old ancestor ate the dragonfish meat and refined it into a few magic weapons. Back then, the old ancestor did have a magic weapon refined from dragon horns and dragon bones. Everyone thought that the rumors were true. Even Wang Daoyuan didn't know that the arawana's body was still there. If it weren't for this rumor, the arawana's carcass would have been destroyed. The Wang family's water dragon technique had some dragon's might, which was imitated from the arowana. However, the dragon aura of the water dragon technique was nothing compared to the arowana. Wang Daoyuan had always felt that his water dragon technique wasn't as powerful as it was rumored to be. Back then, the Grand Ancestor's water dragon art could instantly kill opponents of a higher cultivation level, while his water dragon art could only defeat opponents of the same cultivation level. 5th Uncle and 12th Uncle's water dragon art could only fight against cultivators with slightly higher cultivation bases. Looking at it now, it lacked the charm. The Grand Ancestor had fought side by side with the arowana for hundreds of years. The water dragon technique had the charm of the arowana, so it was naturally more powerful. Wang Daoyuan looked at the arawana's body and felt that it looked a little like a Qing River carp. He asked in confusion, "Grand Elder, why do I feel that the arawana's body looks a little like a Qing River carp?" Grand Elder stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "You have good taste." The arawana's predecessor was a Qing River carp. However, it was a mutant among the Qing River carps. Back when the Grand Ancestor obtained the arowana, it was only a foot long and looked no different from an ordinary Qing River carp. However, it was already a low-grade rank 2 spirit beast. There were indeed Qing River carps that could break through to rank 2, but they were all old fishes that had lived for hundreds of years and were dozens of feet long. The Grand Ancestor saw that it was extraordinary, so he raised it in the Jade Dragon Spring. It ate the Jade Dragon algae in the Jade Dragon Spring, and after decades, it broke through to rank 3. After the breakthrough, a patch of reverse golden scales grew out from the bottom of its throat. This was something that only dragons with a high concentration of dragon blood could grow. Even for flood dragons, only a few of them could grow reverse scales. The Grand Ancestor nurtured it wholeheartedly. Later on, the arowana slowly grew horns and even comprehended the dragon clan's water-controlling ability. After the arowana broke through to rank 4, it grew into its current appearance. Unfortunately, if it didn't die, it might have a chance to break through to rank 5 in the future. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. There was a rumor in the outside world that the Wang family's arowana was an ordinary spirit fish. However, it had always been treated as a rumor. Basically, no one believed it. Wang Daoyuan didn't believe it himself. He didn't expect the rumor to be true. He thought of the hundreds of Qing River carps he raised in the spiritual pearl space, and there were a few rank 2 ones. However, those rank 2 Qing River carps had lived for hundreds of years, and he had never seen one that could break through to rank 2 at a foot long. Grand Elder bowed 3 times to the arowana and then used a secret technique to make the arowana open its mouth. A blue pearl with a diameter of about 9 inches appeared in the arawana's mouth. However, the dragon pearl was covered in cracks as if it would shatter with a touch. Grand Elder asked, "Can this dragon pearl be used?" Wang Daoyuan shook his head and said, "The damage is too severe. It will shatter after a few uses. I don't have the means to repair it. It's good to use it as a one-time use dermic artifact, but it's still lacking when used to refine a natal dermic artifact. However, I can extract its essence to upgrade my natal dermic artifact." Grand Elder sighed and said, "The dragon pearl is indeed too severely damaged." The ancestor left behind 2 secret techniques. One is for Violet Palace realm cultivators to consume the dragon pearl and gain strength comparable to golden core cultivators for a short period of time. After that, the Violet Palace realm cultivator will explode and die. The other is for golden core cultivators to use it to control the arawana's body. Unfortunately, after the defeat, the Wang family didn't leave the Violet Palace realm for 300 years, let alone golden core cultivators. Then, he handed a jade slip, jade sword, and token to Wang Daoyuan and smiled. "I'm not far from death, so I'll leave these things to you." Although Xian triggered the arowana phenomenon when he opened his Violet Palace realm, his aptitude can only be considered above average. The Wang family's future depends on you and Shui. When you form your golden core in the future, you might be able to repair the dragon pearl. By the way, what phenomenon did you trigger when you opened your Violet Palace realm? Wang Daoyuan didn't stand on ceremony with Grand Elder and smiled. "When I opened my Violet Palace realm, I triggered the phenomenon of the 5 elements divine beast." Grand Elder was stunned for a long time before he said excitedly, "Good. Good. Good. My Wang family's prosperity is imminent." Those who could produce divine beasts in their Violet Palace anomalies were all famous experts after forming their golden cores. According to the family's records, when the ancestor opened his Violet Palace realm back then, the phenomenon was a water dragon. Although they're all dragons, there's a difference in status. The water dragon is far inferior to the azure dragon. I didn't expect that you could trigger the phenomenon of the 5 elements divine beast. Grand Elder used a secret technique to shut the arawana's mouth. Wang Daoyuan didn't have the ability to move the arawana's corpse, so he could only leave it here. The 2 of them left the door and reactivated the array. Grand Elder said, "In the future, when you want to comprehend the true dragon's charm, you can come here. Every time you're done, remember to activate the array. This array has the function of protecting the arawana's corpse. If you don't activate the array, there might be problems with the arawana's corpse." Wang Daoyuan nodded and followed Grand Elder back to the secret treasury. After taking a few pieces of black iron crystals, they left the secret treasury. The materials for the black tortoise shield were all prepared, and he could start refining it at any time. Now, Wang Daoyuan was still thinking about something else, and that was the Jade Dragon algae. The Jade Dragon algae could allow aquatic beasts to evolve. If he could plant it in large quantities and feed it to the Qing River carp, it wouldn't be impossible to cultivate another arowana in the future. Although the jade dragon algae had high requirements for its living environment, it was still a spiritual plant. With the spiritual fire of life, it might be able to survive in the spiritual pearl space. Chapter 365. After leaving the ancestral temple, Taigong returned to the front of the hidden scriptures tower. Wang Daoyuan circled around the jade dragon spring and used his divine sense to search for the jade dragon algae. The jade dragon algae grew at the bottom of the spring, and the shallowest part of the water was more than 200 feet deep. Generally, the divine sense of a peak foundation establishment cultivator could only explore 300 to 500 feet in an open space. If he explored underwater, he could only explore about 100 feet underwater. For more than 200 feet underwater, there was nothing he could do. After Wang Daoyuan opened his Zifu, his divine sense could explore the rock layer 5 to 6 miles deep. More than 200 feet of water was naturally not a problem. After finding the jade dragon algae, he used the water dragon technique to condense a small water dragon of 1 foot long and rolled the jade dragon algae out. The jade dragon algae was a specialty of the jade spring peak, and each of them was very precious. Without the consent of the patriarch, he could not touch them easily. However, Wang Daoyuan contributed a lot to the family, so no one said anything when he wanted to pull out a few jade dragon algae. He did not take too much, only 1 third-rank jade dragon algae, 3 second-rank jade dragon algae, and 5 or 6 first-rank jade dragon algae seedlings. He took these jade dragon algae back to the cave house and put them into the space of the spiritual pearl. Naturally, the jade dragon algae could not be directly put into the fish pond. The group of Qing River carps and pseudo-spirit fish ate everything they saw. No matter how much jade dragon algae there was, it was not enough for them to spoil. Li Qingxuan's doppelganger dug a 1-foot-wide hole in the ground around the life spirit fire. Using a second-rank low-grade sweet rain talisman, rain with rich spiritual energy fell in the space. The newly dug pit was quickly filled with water, and the jade dragon algae was planted in the pit. Whether these jade dragon algae could survive or not, it was up to their own luck. Next, Wang Daoyuan began to sacrificial refine the black tortoise shield. There were many ways to refine the life source magic tool, and each magic tool was different. For example, the forging method of the black tortoise shield was to purify the materials, and the molding process was also completed in the dantian. The only impurity in the underworld bead was the death aura, which had been burned by the spiritual fire of life for more than 100 years and had been consumed. Using water spiritual power, he took out a wisp of Gui water death flame from the space and extracted the essence of the black iron crystal. The essence of the blackwater iron crystal was of the water attribute. If it was calcined with an ordinary flame, it would inevitably lose a part of its essence and even affect its quality. When using the Gui water death flame, one only needed to control the flame and not ignite the essence of the material to greatly reduce the consumption. He fused the extracted blackwater iron crystal essence into the underworld bead. After the smelting process was complete, a drop of blood essence was added into it. A natal dharma artifact would first recognize its master before being refined. In addition, after many years of nurturing, he was able to wield it like an extension of his arm, displaying a power that far exceeded that of an ordinary magical artifact. Of course, there were gains and losses. The legacy of a natal dharma artifact was not worth much. After the seniors passed away, the juniors would not be able to unleash the full power of the natal magic tool they left behind. It was not a natal magic artifact that he had refined himself, so its power was weaker than ordinary magic artifacts. Once the smelting process was complete, he stored the underworld bead into his dantian. Then, he poured his spiritual energy and true essence into the underworld bead. After a month of nurturing, he could begin to mold it. The spirit spring bead was between a solid and liquid state. There was no need to forge it at all. He only needed to use his spiritual energy to mold it into the desired shape. He moved the underworld bead from his dantian to the purple palace in his sea of consciousness. His soul followed the refining method and molded the underworld bead into the shape of a black tortoise shield. After that, it was time to inscribe the tool pattern. A natal magic artifact would continuously increase in grade as its master's cultivation level increased. A lack of materials could be made up for through the continuous nurturing of spiritual energy and true essence. One could even use the smelting method to fuse the essence of higher grade materials to increase the grade of the materials. However, the tool pattern that was inscribed could not be strengthened. Therefore, the tool pattern of a natal magic artifact could not be directly inscribed like an ordinary magical artifact. Instead, the tool pattern was condensed using the spiritual imprint. In this way, the tool pattern had the dual function of the tool pattern and the spiritual imprint of an ordinary magical artifact. While ensuring its power, it would be easier to control it. When increasing the grade of a magical artifact, the tool pattern would change a little. It only needed to be infused with the power of the spiritual imprint to perfect the original tool pattern. The tool pattern condensed from the same person's spiritual imprint would not conflict with the tool pattern that was condensed later. Condensing the tool pattern took a lot of time and effort. Wang Daoyuan used half a year to completely condense the tool pattern. At this point, the natal magic artifact, the black tortoise shield, could be considered completed. However, the materials and tool pattern only accounted for a small part of a natal magic artifact's power. In the end, how much power it could unleash depended on how well it was refined. As for the inferior natal magic artifacts, they only needed to be nourished with spiritual power and true yuan. However, a natal magic artifact that was nurtured this way was weak and had a slow growth rate. A superior natal magic artifact refinement method required one to infuse one's own understanding into the artifact. It was just like when a sword cultivator nurtured his natal flying sword, he needed to comprehend the sword intent and infuse it into the flying sword. Refining the black tortoise shield also required one to visualize the true form of the black tortoise. If one could comprehend the charm of the black tortoise and infuse it into the black tortoise shield, its power would increase greatly. The difficulty of comprehending the charm of the black tortoise was not ordinary. The black tortoise was not like the old dragon. If one wanted to comprehend the charm of the true dragon, one could find a dragon species and observe it frequently. The black tortoise bloodline was extremely rare and it was impossible to find a real object to observe. There were many ways to use the black tortoise's phantom to increase one's defense. During the duel between the Netherworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace for the Spirit Vein, Wang Daoyuan had fought a cultivator from the Cruel Sun Palace who used a combination dermic artifact. That person had used the black tortoise's phantom to increase his defense. The black tortoise water repelling array, the existing mountain protection array of Jade Spring Peak, also relied on the black tortoise's phantom to increase the array's defense. However, those things were only superficial and did not have the charm of the black tortoise. For most cultivators, it was extremely difficult to comprehend the charm of a divine beast. However, it wasn't a difficult task for Wang Daoyuan. After all, the black tortoise was part of his Violet Palace manifestation. The Purple Mansion phenomenon was related to divine powers and divine powers were an application of the laws of the Great World. Therefore, the Purple Mansion phenomenon was related to the black tortoise's divine powers and also contained a trace of the black tortoise's charm. Of course, the effect of observing the black tortoise's phenomenon was far inferior to capturing a black tortoise bloodline demon beast and observing it. However, it was still much better than looking at a visualization diagram and imagining it out of thin air. It was also fortunate that he was refining the black tortoise shield. If it were any other spirit tortoise shield, the Purple Mansion phenomenon would not be of any help. Wang Daoyuan injected a large amount of spiritual sense and spirit energy into the black tortoise mark outside his purple mansion. The black tortoise mark shone brightly and turned into the phantom of a black tortoise. Then, he controlled the black tortoise shield and imitated the appearance of the purple mansion phenomenon to condense the black tortoise phantom. It was impossible to comprehend the charm of the black tortoise in a short period of time unless one had an extremely dense black tortoise bloodline. He observed the black tortoise's phenomenon every day to comprehend the charm and fused his comprehension, spirit energy, and true essence into the black tortoise shield. 2 years later, he would have some success in refining the black tortoise shield. Its power should not be weak. He still needed to find an opponent to spar with to test his strength. He did not dare to touch demon beasts recklessly. Class 3 demon beasts were not like Class 2 demon beasts where no one would care if they were killed. Class 3 demon beasts were not inferior to ordinary humans in terms of intelligence and had friends. If he killed one, he would attract a group of them and might even trigger a small beast stampede. Furthermore, Class 3 demon beasts were not simple. They had many innate Dharma spells, ranging from 2 to 8. It was not strange for some mutated species to have comprehended more than 10 innate Dharma spells. They were not to be trifled with. If Class 3 demon beasts were not strong in combat, there would not be a shortage of foundation establishment elixirs on the market. He could casually kill 2 of them and obtain their demon cores to refine foundation establishment elixirs. It was too risky to fight demon beasts. It was better to let his 5th great uncle be his sparring partner. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.